I've often been referred to as this podcast's secret weapon.
By whom?
Many such cases.
Yep. Sad. Hello, De Niro Nation, and welcome to Our Hero De Niro, the only podcast watching and recapping every Robert De Niro film in random order. I'm Mike, joined as ever by my co-host, Mike.
No relation.
And I am incredibly excited to be here for this very special 40th episode to discuss one of my favorite films, and I know one of yours, Christopher Nolan's 2020 film, Tenet. I don't know. Where do we even begin? I'm going to be totally forthright about even why we're here, right? So this episode is going to come out on October 7th, 2025, and I feel a change in kind of like the online community of cinephiles. Over the past 2 or 3 months, I have observed, I can't remember if you've indicated to me that you've gotten the sense as well, but I'm just sensing a mild shift in the discourse, shift in folks' general disposition about Tenet. And you and me have loved this film since it came out. And it's very, very important to me, and I hope it's important to you as well, that we take this opportunity to get on the record before the critical winds shift, before every asshole tries to lie and say, I never hated Tenet. I want to get right on the record and say, I have always loved this movie since it first came out. And I just want to, on October 7th, 2025, I just want to get something out there into the universe that in 5 years, when every hipster asshole says they always loved Tenet, we can go back and point to this to prove our Christopher Nolan bona fides.
Sure.
So that's why we're here today.
That's why this is our 40th episode spectacular.
Yes, it's exactly why. Yes.
Perfect.
Yes. So, Mike, what's your experience with Tenet?
I mean, listen, I love Tenet. I'm going to make the case for Tenet. I am an enthusiastic Tenet proponent. I'm wearing my Tenet t-shirt right now. Tenet,
yes, you are.
Featuring the plan
Yep.
by Travis Scott. Always fun when a movie has a tie-in song, especially after the 90s. But I absolutely love this film and have since my first viewing. Actually, as of now, I have seen Tenet 11 times. And I just want to recount a couple of the special occasions on which I've watched this film, many of those times with you. The first time we watched it together at Blake's house, that was an incredible experience. I had an edible and completely lost track of the plot about halfway through, so that was really great.
Which would happen with or without intoxication.
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah,
I watched this shit stone cold sober the other day, and it's still really confusing.
Well, the second time I watched Tenet was the very next day with my dad at his house, and I tried watching it with a more analytical mind, and I kind of understood it, but not entirely, but I still loved it. My enjoyment didn't diminish. The 8th time that I saw Tenet was with you. We actually took a road trip early last year as part of our year of IMAX, where we committed to watching every film released in IMAX to see the IMAX 70 millimeter re-release of Tenet. We drove down to the King of Prussia IMAX theater right outside of Philadelphia.
Yes, we did.
Turned it into a weekend and really spectacular experience watching the film on a screen that large with a bunch of other Tenet heads. More recently, we actually rewatched Tenet together in my backyard. But I love the film, and it is something that I like to watch at least once a year with you, if not more. I don't like rewatching films so much that, they lose their luster. So I want to keep it special. And Tenet is definitely one of those films.
Yeah, this has really never lost its luster for me. So obviously a lot of my experience with it is the same as yours. I would call out some of the same kind of primary memories, most key of which I think would be the trip to Philly to watch it on the big ol' real IMAX screen, one of the few we have here in the USA. But I really was struck, honestly, when I watched it earlier this week, because it was the first time I'd really sat down and watched it with an analytical eye in several years. I really think that it is one of the most underrated films of the past several decades. Like, I'm trying to square an earnest engagement with it as a piece of art with the general sort of consensus among Reddit film bros. And I think they're just high on their own supply. And it's just like people who have like never actually sat down and watched the film, never paid close attention to it, who just allow themselves to be fooled by the fact that it's a little silly and by the fact that there's this like Reddit idiot hive mind who think that this film is bad into just totally dismissing it. And yeah, it's flawed. I mean, it certainly is not a perfect film, but it is a great film. And if you can look past the slight campiness, look past some of the ways in which maybe the science doesn't totally stand up to scrutiny, but does it really need to? It's kind of like a silly sci-fi fantasy time travel film. It's really something very special and really exceptional. And I'm just so excited to set the record straight and give such a full-throated and hopefully effective defense of Tenet here on Our Hero De Niro. So Tenet was the big tentpole release of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm doing this from memory, just so you know. I didn't write any of this stuff down. I think it had like a $200 million budget, I think, and it made $350 at the box office. So with all the kind of extra stuff, it was not profitable. And I think it definitely struggled with the fact that just the theater going experience in 2020, I think this was like August or maybe around September, right? It was like the Labor Day release in 2020. People weren't really going to the movie theater. A lot of stuff was still shut down. And so I think that there is certainly a sort of like pandemic related dimension to it having been a little bit poorly received historically. We've only seen it in theaters once, which is really interesting. I mean, I think that if I had seen Tenet in theaters when it first came out, like if 2020 had been a normal year, I think it would have been one of those rare films that I would have gone to see 2 or 3 times in the movie theater. I would have really relished getting the opportunity to watch it more than once on the big screen. Yeah,
I agree with that, but I also think it's so Tenet that we watched it on home release first and then later on saw it in a movie theater.
It's so parabolic.
Great. It's all part of the experience.
So, as I've stated, if in case you somehow are not familiar, this film was directed by Christopher Nolan of Inception, Dark Knight, Interstellar, The Prestige fame. Certainly one of the Sloppenheimer. We've recommended on the pod before. One of the great directors of the modern era for sure. It stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, and Kenneth Branagh, along with some small little bit appearances by folks like Sir Michael Caine, playing a character whose name has actually a few letters different from his name in real life. I don't know if you remember this, but his name in the movie is Sir Michael Crosby. Sir Michael Crosby. Yeah, they could. That was in his rider. He was like, you can only make my character's name have 4-letter divergence from my name in real life. And I heard your little snicker. One of mine and Mike's most spirited and longest lasting disagreements about this film is about Kenneth Branagh's performance. It'll be really a very good time to get into it and talk about it. So it's a very strange film. It is a time travel, sci-fi, action, thriller, drama, I guess. It's got some very heady sci-fi elements and an extremely dense and complex plot. The storytelling is done very little through exposition and explanation. It's a dialogue light movie, and it is famously mixed in a very unusual way. The non-dialogue audio is significantly louder relative to the dialogue than what you may be used to seeing in other films, which is it's frustrating on a first watch because it makes it so challenging to have any sense of going on. But I really think it's a part of Nolan's entire kind of pitch to the audience, I think, with the film, which is just that you're really not supposed to think about this stuff very much. It's a vibes movie. It's extremely visually evocative. It's very auditorially evocative. It's got a lot of practical effects. It's a beautiful film, and it's just an experience. It's a really wild ride. You think we should get into the recap?
Sure. Yeah, now that you've set the scene for the film, let's get into it.
All right, let's do it. So the film opens, and we are at the Kiev Opera House in Ukraine. And the score for the film, which I should have mentioned, is it's kind of amazing, honestly, that we
talked
for
like 15 minutes and you didn't say like the cinematographer or the composer or anything. Not relevant details at all.
I don't know who the cinematographer is. You can share whatever information you want to share.
I intend to, as we talk about the film.
Go ahead. Who's the cinematographer?
The cinematographer.
You're here too. Yeah.
It's your recap. You wanted to do a recap for the 40th episode spectacular. The cinematographer of the film is Hoyt van Hoytema, who is a frequent collaborator of Nolan's these days. He is notable for doing films like Dunkirk, Oppenheimer. He did Let the Right One In. So very talented cinematographer. I think he also did Sinners.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
He is very familiar with shooting in the IMAX format.
Love that. And the score is by Ludwig Göransson, who I think had his first sort of work of note within a year or two prior to this, right? It was the score for the Disney Plus series, The Mandalorian, which had a great first season and certainly had a great score.
The only season I've ever watched.
But the Mandalorian truly walked so that that Tenet could run. The score of Tenet is it's almost impossible to explain just how unbelievably exceptional it is. I really just want to say, I should say before we start this recap.
Oh my God.
If you've never seen Tenet, you really should just pause the episode and go watch the film, because I'm not sure how much sense this recap is going to make without having seen it. I wrote extremely detailed bulleted notes. I really thought about whether any of this was going to make sense, and I'm really not sure that it's going to, honestly, without having seen the film. So we're going to do our best here. It's a really difficult film to describe if you've never seen it. I would strongly encourage that you go sit down and watch it if you haven't seen it. It's, at the very least, it's divisive and interesting. It'll give you something to think about and talk to your fellow film goers about. So anyway, the film opens and the score is introduced diegetically. The score opens with Rainy Night in Talon, which is one of the best songs on the score, but the track opens with the sounds of an orchestra tuning. So we hear the orchestra tuning in the opera house in the score. Gunshots ring out, the orchestra conductor falls, and this sets the scene for the film immediately. This is an incredibly lively and energetic film. It never stops moving. Even when we're getting some of the comparatively slightly drier and slower, more methodical scenes of dialogue that we do get occasionally within the film, the way the shots are framed, the way the cuts are done from an editing perspective, everything moves along so briskly that it always feels like you're being carried along on this journey, no matter what's happening. And that happens right at the start. So we meet John David Washington. His character is only named the protagonist. He's a CIA operative. He's in a van with some other folks, and he's impersonating some kind of group. I think it might be Ukrainian federal law enforcement, but this is really unclear to me because it seems like they're also the terrorists. Do you understand? Like, I'm going to ask you sometimes, like, whether you understand something. If the answer is no, it's no big fucking deal because none of it matters. But like, I would love for you to fill in context where there is something I do not understand. Do you understand like who the parties are in the opera siege?
Okay. I think, oh man, this is fucking crazy. I don't know how well this is going to go as a recap. We could have just done Mike and Mike have a little roundtable discussion about Tenet. 45 minutes in and out, but we're going to try to recap it. So I think that who we later learn are Sator's crew. So Sator's crew, I think, are the ones invading the opera house. The Kiev police shows up, and the protagonist and his CIA crew have patches for various different agencies, and they put those on their shoulders when they see which group actually arrived at the scene.
Yeah, I understand that. I'll tell you why later in the scene, why I'm confused about this. I understand that. Anyway, doesn't matter. We see, to your point, he and his companions put on the Velcro arm badges to impersonate the law enforcement folks who've shown up, and they storm the facility. The protagonist forces his way up into a box. There's a man in there being held prisoner. The protagonist shoots the man's captor, and they have a cryptic conversation. The man says, "We live in a twilight world," and the protagonist responds, "And there are no friends at dusk." The protagonist tells him he's been compromised, and he has to either bring him in or kill him. They jump out of the window of the box, and there's a little bit more action while the protagonist is trying to get the guy out. The terrorists are planting bombs, and this is why I'm confused about what's going on here. The protagonist bumps into one of the terrorists who also has an arm badge on, and the terrorist makes him because he sees him look surprised by the bombs.
And then he flips it off of the protagonist.
So, like, why do the terrorists have badges? Like, I don't... I mean, whatever. Like I said, if you don't know, it doesn't fucking matter at all. Like, none of the specifics matter. I just want to give you the opportunity to fill in gaps for me, like that I have. With a more close watch, I noticed some stuff that makes less sense to me on close analysis than it had in the past. It's all
my
just
watch,
vibes, man.
Was not very close. Listen, I took notes, but it was mostly just quotes from the film.
Okay. So the guy whom he's exfiltrating has told the protagonist that there's something at the coat check. So the protagonist goes to the coat check. He finds like this weird kind of like set of segments attached to each other, this strange object in a bag. And one of the other CIA guys asks the protagonist if the terrorists are taking out the audience, and the protagonist says only the cheap seats, which I think is like one of the first like really cool, like kind of campy James Bond spy thriller lines. Protagonist goes to remove the bombs. He's attacked, and his assailant is disabled by a bullet traveling in reverse. So we see this very distinctive shot of, a hole in some masonry or whatever in the seats of the opera house, and we see a bullet eject itself from the hole repair itself, and then the bullet traveling backwards in time essentially goes. Yeah, right. Like, how much fucking sense is this going to make? You've never seen this movie. Like,
yeah, man. I just, what an unbelievable choice to recap Tenet.
I think I'm doing a really good job too. Honestly, I think I'm doing as good a job as you possibly could. I'm just not sure.
Listen, and so Christopher Nolan could not do a better job recapping Tenet.
We see the bullet travel in reverse, and it goes through the guy who's attacking the protagonist and takes him out. We get a weird kind of shift in the score. This happens when something emotionally or thematically, or sometimes like from a plot perspective significant happens. The score will kind of like drop off, and you'll get like a kind of like vibe. Like it's just like trying to tell you that it's like the big bong drop moment, or big bong hit moments that the film has sometimes.
I think an ambulance drove by when you were watching that part of the film.
Yeah, the thing that happens in the score didn't really sound anything like what I did. I agree now in retrospect that it sounded more like an ambulance siren. So whatever. Listen to the Tenet score. So as the score makes the weird sound, we see the quote unquote shooter, the person to whom the bullet returned from exiting the stone that it was embedded in. And he has a small brass trinket on an orange string on his backpack. The protagonist throws the bombs up into the mezzanine, protecting the audience as they explode. He leaves the opera house, he returns to his van, but there are bad guys there and he's captured. We see a scene in a train yard at dawn. He's being enhanced interrogated. They're pulling out his teeth. His captor finds a cyanide capsule hidden in the collar of his jacket and removes it. He tosses it aside, but shortly after, another captive who's on the ground manages to grab the cyanide pill, slip it to the protagonist, and he takes it to kill himself, and we get the title card. Tenet.
Fade to white.
To white.
You have any thoughts you want to say about this scene before we move on? Because I know I have thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maybe the greatest opening scene to an action film of all time, to be honest. Like, it's kind of insane, isn't it? The song is so unbelievable. I feel like it sets the tone for the film so well. It shows and tells you just enough. It shows enough Mysterioso bullshit to get you like super invested in figuring out what's going on, and then it ends. It's like 8 minutes long. It's so good. It's awesome. What do you think about this scene?
I completely unironically agree. I think this might be my favorite opening to any action film ever. It does the same thing that the first scene in The Matrix does, which is, establish some unanswered questions, but does it in such a thrilling way. It's the perfect encapsulation of what makes the film so special. And a lot of it does have to do with that score by Ludwig Göransson. So this score grabbed me from the very first minute of the film when we see that shot of the protagonist waiting in line with the other cops to breach inside the opera house. It kind of drops in tone. It kind of goes like from higher to lower, and then it goes back higher after a second. And when that happened, it really, I just immediately kind of tuned in and thought, oh, wait, we're doing something different here.
Something special is going on here. Like,
and the score itself is so fascinating. It's very harsh in the electronic, but it's very functional. It's very focused on escalating the tension and sustaining it, which is really cool. These songs are not necessarily structured like traditional songs in an orchestral score. And it has such a distinct sound and identity to it. The rhythm plays a lot with triplets. It's so interesting to listen to. And it's definitely one of those soundtracks that I enjoy re-listening to when I'm on a walk every now and then. It's kind of like the Challenger soundtrack in that regard. But absolutely fantastic introduction. I love that it's just this mini little arc inside the film, and it really does a great job of grabbing our attention and keeping it through the remainder of the first act.
Oh, yeah. It's really special. So I do have actually my notes divided into scenes, and you correctly identified that this is identified as one sequence. So I'll note when we're ending a sequence, and we can give our thoughts on it.
Okay.
So here's the next sequence. I've called this one Recruited.
You named them?
Yep, I named them. Yeah, yep. So a CIA handler, a guy named Faye, wakes up the protagonist and says, "Welcome to the afterlife."
That guy has a name?
He tells him, yeah. His name's Faye. Okay. A lot of the characters have names, by the way. That's one of the ones I did note and write down. But like, I know like the third dude who helps them on like the 747 heist later, like he has a name.
Oh,
so does like Sator's main henchman. I like did not note or write either of those down. But like those characters also have names. I found like when I was doing research into the film for this recap. Anyway, welcome to the afterlife. He tells him he's been in a medically induced coma while the CIA got him out of Ukraine and repaired the damage that was done to his jaw from all the torturing they did.
Enhanced interrogation.
Enhanced interrogation. He was probably just a little bit of light waterboarding. The protagonist asks whether his team got clear, and Faye tells him they didn't, and observes that he chose to die rather than compromise his team, and that he's passed a test. Quote, "We all believe we'd run into the burning building, but until we feel that heat, we can never know. You do." I love that line. There are
a lot of really cool lines in the script.
There's some highs and lows from line perspective in this scene. Here's one that I think is a little bit more dubious. There's a cold war, cold as ice. To even know its true nature is to lose.
Oh, that one makes me
knowledge
laugh.
Divided.
Yeah.
All I have for you is a gesture in combination with a word. Tenet. Use it carefully. It'll open the right doors, but some of the wrong ones too. So he's been recruited into Tenet and told that he can just use this code word essentially to identify other members of Tenet
with the gesture.
With the gesture. So the gesture is something that I really struggle to do.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's literally just moving your hand so that your fingers interlock, but Mike can't do it without maiming himself for some reason.
Yep.
Really bad hand-eye coordination.
Yep. Well, whatever.
Oh,
anyway,
man, you go to finger blast a lady and you poke her in the eye on accident.
No, I accidentally do the Tenet thing.
You do the Tenet thing to her?
No, just that. It's like right in front of my chest.
You just end up doing it perfectly. Like that's how you do it.
Oh shit! I'm sorry. I thought this was foreplay. This meeting ends. The protagonist moves on to some kind of oil extraction platform. We see a montage, and featured in the montage is a shot of him doing pull-ups on a ladder, like 50 feet in the air. Very goofball behavior. We see him leave the facility on a transport boat, and we see a ton of cool spy shit. There's a lot of like clandestine handoffs and like disguises and stuff, and like kind of like a short montage here. Protagonist goes into a research facility and he's caught by a lady named Barbara. She has a name too, by the way, in case you didn't look that one up.
I want to stop you because I thought you were going to stop after we were moving to a different location.
No, this is all one sequence.
This is all one sequence for you. Okay, whatever. Regardless.
That's okay.
What did you call it? An oil extraction rig?
Yeah, like an oil extraction platform.
Is that what it is? It's a windmill.
Yeah, it's like, no, isn't he on? Oh, is it a windmill?
What? Yeah. How many times have you seen this film?
I don't know. I always thought it was like an oil rig.
You thought it was an oil? Have you ever seen an oil rig? What?
Not in real life. I mean, I don't know.
But you know what? What?
Hey, if you guys have ever seen Tenet, why don't you write into ourherodeniro@gmail.com and tell us if you think this was a windmill or an oil rig.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, citizens of De Niro Nation, stand back and stand by, because I just want to let you first know that the second track in the Tenet soundtrack is titled Windmills.
Never made that connection before.
He's on an
That's
oil
really good
rig.
shit. Yeah.
I love this sequence of him spending a weekend or an overnight stay on the oil rig, because we get this little montage of him just being bored and him doing this shot. I have to call out the shot of him doing the pull-ups on the chin-ups on the 50 feet up on the inside of this essentially hollow tube. It's so great. It is totally unnecessary because you could get the exact same workout climbing 3 or 4 steps.
The gravity's not stronger.
Exactly.
Like,
he climbs all the way up just because it makes for a super cool overhead shot in that IMAX format. I love that shit so much. I'm not even joking when I say that part of the reason why I'm on this fitness journey, besides the health benefits and my own personal sense of vanity, is because every now and then when I'm watching an action film, I just see the protagonist do some really cool shit that makes me want to be able to do that shit. One famous example is you remember in Mission Impossible 3 when Tom Cruise is running through that Chinese village to try and find his wife. Yeah. That's such a cool fucking tracking shot of him running just like 2 miles straight at breakneck speed. I'm like, I want to be able to do that shit. That's that Tom Cruise shit. Same thing with the protagonist in this film, just chilling and he's just killing time doing chin-ups. And I'm like, I'd love to be able to do one chin-up. I can do the down part really easily. It's the up part that I'm having trouble with.
Yeah, this stuff, this all sounds cool, but I'm really confused. The protagonist isn't in Mission Impossible. He's only in Tenet.
Yeah. But I'm saying, you're making a joke. It always catches me off guard, listeners, when Mike tries making a joke. That's good stuff. That's good Tenet humor right there.
So he goes to the research facility. He's caught by the lady named Barbara attempting to sneak into her lab. And she gives him an explanation about time travel and inverted entropy. I've just written in my notes here to explain this. I didn't feel like typing out the way I was going to explain it. Yeah. So here we go. So she explains that in this universe of Tenet, there is some kind of scientific process. They call it an algorithm. It's not explained clearly at all, that has allowed this discovery of essentially how to reverse or invert an object's entropy, which makes it go back in time. And so, very basic physics information for those who are not aware. Entropy is matter and energy returning to their base state, right? Essentially their entropic state. So it's like the state of entropy in the universe is everything completely still at absolute zero, which is the coldest temperature that can happen. It's like negative 300 degrees or something like that. And so the act of existence in the universe, right? The existence of all matter of all energy essentially is warring against entropy. It's like when you heat your house, like the way you think about what it's doing is you are trying to prevent the cold from outside from coming in. But what you're really doing is you're just slowing the methodical, constant crawl toward entropy that the universe is on a path toward, and we're going to get there. Give it a few trillion years, like everything's going to be cold and still. And so, in this universe of Tenet, you can do this totally incomprehensible thing called inverting an object's entropy, where the entropic state it's moving toward, I guess, is one where it's hotter and has more energy. It's really very difficult to understand, and I don't think it actually makes any sense. But that's the mechanics of this universe. And so when stuff goes back in time, those things are objects that have had their entropy inverted, and so they travel and act essentially in opposition to the way that we expect things to act. You got anything you want to add here? Any context or thoughts about the Tenet physics?
Yeah, thanks for the Physics 101 lesson. In this scene of the film, Barbara tells the protagonist, don't try to understand it, feel it. And
I was going to say it.
And there has, sure, well, whatever. Let's talk about it. There has never been a more clear example of the director of the film telling you, here's how to experience the film.
It doesn't fucking matter. I described it in my notes after the quote as Nolan's case to the audience. Yes. So everybody who hates this movie, they must have covered their ears during this scene, or maybe her dialogue was mixed a little poorly with some of the other audio, because he kind of tells you right there, you're not supposed to be paying any attention to this at all. So she gives the protagonist a gun, and he quote unquote fires it into a stone slab on the wall, but the bullet comes out of the slab and enters the gun. And Barbara says it's inverted. Its entropy runs backwards, so to our eyes, its movement looks reversed. The protagonist asks some perfunctory questions about, why this is happening, like whatever, etc. She's not really going to tell him anything, but she does give him an analysis of the composition of metals in the slab, because she explains that she essentially got this slab that's been inverted with inverted bullets in it to research. And so knowing where these bullets came from, where this slab came from, is going to allow the protagonist to kind of chase down like where some of the stuff is coming from, like get to the next stage on his quest. And we got another line here that tends to kind of run in my head a lot. The protagonist asks her, "What do you think we're seeing?" And she says, "The detritus of a coming war." We'll talk more about that line later, because it's something Caroline really gave me an earful about yesterday at dinner. So, all right, so that is the end of a sequence. Do you have anything besides noting Nolan's thesis that you'd like to call out?
No, I'm really excited for this next establishing shot, because it is one of my favorite shots in the entire film.
So this section is called Mumbai. So we're going to India.
Really original.
And yep. And so this is the first time I want to call out. There's a few points when I'm gonna acknowledge this. There are so many things to love about this film, but one of the things that I haven't mentioned is this film has unbelievable costume design. This is something that you and me have, waxed philosophical and excited about over the course of the podcast. I love great costuming in films, and this film has some of the absolute greatest. And this is the first really cool protagonist outfit. So he's wearing a very soft, very warm tweed jacket over a soft, like, sweater polo, and they are just slightly different tan colors. Like, the color of the jacket and the polo are so similar, and it looks so good. He looks so cool in this scene.
I completely agree, and it's also fun when it comes to Neil's outfits, a character that we'll be introduced to momentarily, that he essentially just dresses like Christopher Nolan does in real life. I love that
cool.
He's basically just a Christopher Nolan
younger
proxy.
Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I'm going to make the emotional center of the film myself, but younger.
Myself, but younger, and one of the hottest actors
right,
working,
and looking like Robert Pattinson.
Right,
sure.
Yeah. So the protagonist needs to get into Sanjay Singh's house. He's looking for the local arms dealer, because his general thinking is that because this bullet in this wall came from Mumbai, Sanjay Singh's the guy in the area, so he's going to know where this stuff is from. He makes a phone call and arranges a meet with a guy whom I think we're supposed to understand is just like a local fixer. Or like we're supposed to think that the protagonist understands is just a local fixer. And he goes to a cafe to meet him. And to your comment just a moment ago, it's Neil, played by Robert Pattinson. We get some really great dialogue here between the two of them. Neil orders a Diet Coke for the protagonist and says, "You never drink on the job." And the protagonist says, "You're well informed." And Neil says, "Pays to be in our profession." And the protagonist says, "Well, I prefer soda water." And there's a brief little pause, and Neil says, "No, you don't."
A little smile.
I love the ethereal music in this scene. This song is called Neil on the score, unsurprisingly.
It's not called Oil Rig?
Wind Neils. And the way the scene is shot and edited, the way the sound is like slightly dim relative to the music and the dialogue, the scene is shot almost kind of like a romantic meet cute between the characters, which I really like. And so I'd like to take the opportunity here to point out one of the things about this film that I think makes it really, really special. Neil and the protagonist, right, John David Washington and Robert Pattinson, they have almost unbelievable chemistry, like the two of them do together. And this really is like, it's kind of like a bromance film, right? Like, it's just about these two guys like hanging out, like developing their relationship with each other, getting to know each other, getting into fun hijinks. It's I don't know, it's one of my favorite bromances ever depicted on film. Is that something you really like about the movie as well, Mike?
I completely agree. Beyond the technical aspects of the film, its structure, I love that it is a bromance at the heart of it.
So their plan is that they are going to bungee jump up onto and then back down from the building that Sanjay Singh lives in. And this scene is so fucking cool.
Yes.
So do you want to say now what you were going to say earlier?
Yeah, when I said establishing shot, I actually meant for this sequence, not the previous one. We are greeted to an incredible full IMAX aspect ratio shot of Mumbai at night, basically at dusk. It is absolutely gorgeous. I mean, I loved seeing that. The sense of scale, especially in the real IMAX theater, was really remarkable. And the song that starts playing, it's just pure synths. There's no percussion, but it does such a great job of establishing the tension of this scene when they're getting set up. This is just pure competence porn. Totally wordless scene if you want to go ahead and describe it.
Yeah. So it is a totally wordless scene. The track is Freeport, which is actually primarily featured later in the score, but they pre-use it in this earlier bungee jump sequence. So the song plays, and I don't even know really how to describe it. So they have some kind of apparatus or machinery set up that essentially like tightens their bungee cord such that when it releases, they are catapulted up onto the building, but somehow still have the bungee cords to jump off. Is this a real thing? Is this real?
I doubt it. I've never heard of this being used elsewhere.
Yeah. Yep. So I think it's just some sci-fi bullshit, but it's really, really cool. So they like bungee jump catapult up onto the building. The synths are playing, and they land completely silently and just start slowly working their way through the penthouse floor that they're on, taking out this entire like cadre of guards whom Singh has guarding him. The protagonist apprehends Sanjay, and his wife Priya is off to the side, and she pushes a panic button that's meant to call some guards. But we see that Neil has the guards held up at their guard station, and I love this scene. Something that's really special about this film is everything we learn about the characters, we learn from things we see them do rather than ways that they explain their motivation. And this is an incredible character moment for Neil. So we see him. He's got the guards held up. He's pointing a gun at them, but they're eating dinner. And as he's holding them up, he's like trying to calm them down. And he's like, go ahead, eat. Don't let it get cold. Like, it's like, even in those moments, like he's just like so cool. He's still trying to make sure like everybody's having as good a time as they possibly can. And we really kind of understand his character a little bit from this moment. I think it's so cool. I wrote, the film does such a great job of letting us know these characters' personalities without bullshit exposition. Priya says to the protagonist while he's got Sanjay held up, to say anything about a client would violate the tenets he lives by. To which the protagonist responds, yep, if tenets are important to you, then you can tell me everything. So he said the code word. They've said the code word now. So we find out that Priya is actually the arms trafficker. Her husband is a front, as arms trafficking is, of course, more of a man's world. And she tells him the man he's looking for, from whom the bullets and wall came, is a guy named Andrei Sater, a Russian oligarch expat living in London who's functioning as a broker between the present and the future. Protagonist asks he can communicate with the future, and Priya says we all can, and explains that writing a note, sending an email, leaving a voicemail, whatever, is all communication with the future. But the question is, can the future speak back? She calls him a fresh-faced protagonist, so there's his name. She said
it's all we're going to get.
Yep, and the protagonist and Neil escape just as the police arrive by bungee jumping back off the building. All right, that's the end of the Mumbai sequence.
Can I just say this scene features another one of my favorite quotes in the film that I think does a great job of establishing the protagonist as a character? Because again, in many ways, Tenet feels like, to me, a blockbuster stripped down to its bare essentials. And that has a lot to do with the script and how it's written. These are aesthetic choices, not giving the protagonist a name, things like that. But when he captures Sanjay Singh before he has the conversation with Priya, he has Singh down on his knees. He's pointing a gun to his head, and he kind of puts his hand kind of like over the muzzle of the pistol so as to block the blood for when he shoots the guy in the head. And Singh's trying to talk to him and make conversation, negotiate. And the protagonist tells him, I'm not the man they send to negotiate or the man they send to make deals. And then he cocks his gun and goes, but I am the man people talk to. And I feel like that is one of the most badass action movie lines I can remember. Yep. It's so great at establishing that he had this whole career in the CIA. He's hyper competent, and this is just him taking care of business. He's hard, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. He's very hard.
I love those little, just tiny details that inform who this guy really is when it comes to his work.
Yeah, so cool. I love the protagonist. I feel like, John David Washington gets a lot of flack for his performance in this film, I think, for being kind of stiff and wooden. I think that people's general read of that is that he's not a competent actor. I think that's the way the character is supposed to be. I think he is kind of a stiff guy. Like, He's very competent. He's very by the book. He is a little bit haughty and full of himself, I think. And like, that's just what he's like. I don't know. What do you think about John David Washington's performance in the role?
Yeah, it's interesting because I am inclined to agree with the comments that say he's wooden in this role. But again, I think it's by design. But I have a tough time with it because after watching this film a few times, I did wonder what would it be like if a young Denzel Washington played this role. And I think it would add a lot in its own way to have that kind of peak Denzel charisma. I don't think his son inherited it, but I think he is playing the role the way that Nolan wanted him to play it. And I also think a lot of things that I might call deficiencies of the film actually contribute to my overall enjoyment of it. So I don't have a problem with this.
Yeah, I'm not like trying to say that I think that, you know, the younger Washington is as charismatic or probably really even as talented as his father. Like Denzel Washington is obviously one of the greatest actors of his generation. But like, to your point, I think it's by design. They chose a wooden actor because he's playing a wooden character. Like that's what he's supposed to be like. I don't think that this is a guy who would be charismatic like Denzel Washington would play it. That's Neil's role as his foil. Neil's the kind of like sexy, like charismatic, cool guy. Like that's his way of engaging with the world. They're foils to each other in that way. All right, next section, England. So the protagonist meets up with Sir Michael Crosby, played by Sir Michael Caine. As I joked, this was in his agreement with the production company. He would not allow them to pick a name that had like more than one or two morpheme difference from his name in real life. And we get some really funny banter between the protagonist and the host at the restaurant at which they're meeting. We get some exposition from Crosby about Andrei Sader's origins. He's from one of these old Soviet cities that aren't on maps. It's called Stalsk 12. Sader's got a wife. Her name's Kat. She sold him a fake Goya painting. She's an art appraiser. And Crosby gives the protagonist another forgery of the same painting to use to get Kat's attention in order to get close to Sader. And the protagonist, he looks nice, but he looks like a normal middle-class guy, the way he's dressed. And Michael Caine says, no offense, but in this world where somebody's claiming to be a billionaire, Brooks Brothers won't cut it. And the protagonist says, I'm assuming I'm on a budget. And Michael Caine says, save the world, then we'll balance the books, which is another line that I really enjoy.
This scene to me, listen, there's no part of Tenet that I would ever skip when I'm rewatching it. But this scene to me reminds me of mandatory tutorial sections in the beginning of single player video games where it's like you're restarting the game to play it again and you can't skip that first mission. This is just a total exposition dump. It's fine. It's brief. There's a little...
It's Michael Caine, right? I mean, you love to hear his voice.
Yeah,
right?
There's a little bit of comedy. I think tonally this film is good about having just a light sprinkling of comedy, not enough to bring it into action comedy or buddy cop territory, but it keeps things engaging. It keeps the movie from feeling too dour, especially given the stakes.
Agreed. Completely agreed. So we meet Kat for the first time at her son's school. She's there picking her son up. His name is Max. The protagonist watches her from a car on the other side of the street. Then we see him visit her at her office at Shipley's. Like I said, she's an art appraiser there. And he gives her the fake Goya. She's immediately taken back by it. And he tells her he got it from a guy named Thomas Arepo, from whom he learned from Crosby, Kat got her forgery. And this gets her attention. They go to dinner, and protagonist tells her that he wants to meet Sader, and she shares that Sader is holding the forgery over her head as leverage to enforce her compliance with his whims, and he says that he'll share it with the police and get her arrested if she doesn't do what he says. And she also tells the protagonist that they recently holidayed to Vietnam on their yacht, and she tried to love Sader again but couldn't. While they were there, she was returning from being ashore with their son Max and saw another woman jumping off the yacht. She thinks Sader is having an affair with her and feels jealous of her, not because she gets to be with Sader, but because she gets to choose to leave and dive off the boat. She tells the protagonist that she didn't know the painting was a forgery, but Andre doesn't believe her and says Andre can't conceive of failure, only betrayal. The protagonist offers to steal the painting from Sader in exchange for Kat's cooperation. Andre's goons approach the table. They take the protagonist into the kitchen. He says, maybe the most iconic line of the film at this point. I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago, which I think we should stop and talk about at the end of this. I captioned that an epic gamer moment.
I ordered my hot sauce an hour ago.
We get a brutal fight scene. The protagonist absolutely wallops everybody who he's being attacked by. But there's one shot that I think is one of the most horrifying shots of the entire film.
It's incredible.
Where he bashes a guy over the head with a cheese grater, and then as the guy gets up, he basically what would you describe
What
it?
are
I
you
guess
even
like
talking
scores
about?
it. Like he like scores the cheese grater down over his face and knocks him down onto the ground.
How are you capable of misremembering so many things about this film? He knocks the guy down onto, what would you call a kitchen counter in this industrial kitchen. And he has the cheese grater held against the guy's face, and he kind of slides the guy forward. And then when the guy hits a barrier, the cheese grater keeps going. He grates the guy's face.
It's literally like functionally exactly what I said.
You were saying some weird overhead. How would that work?
It doesn't matter. You just
you'd have
this is
to
one of those
line it up
moments. Like whenever
perfectly.
we record, you extend the podcast by 10 or 15% by making these meaningless clarifications.
Listen,
it's
man.
like, sure, I'll give it to you, but the whole point of what I was describing was just to say he grated his fucking face off.
He grates a man's face with a cheese grater.
Like he grates the man's face off.
I just saved us 3 minutes. That's how you describe it.
Oh my God. I rate the action in this film is incredible. This scene is amazing. It is such a cool fight scene. He walks out of the back of the restaurant and Kat sees him. She's surprised and impressed. And we get a scene the next day of the protagonist approaching Kat at Max's school.
Yeah. Why don't you stop for a second? Because I have a thing to say about that scene.
We're like a sentence away from the end, just so you know.
Oh, okay. What was the sentence?
Yeah. We get some exposition. I think it's like Neil narrating or something, I believe, about the concept of free ports, which I'll explain at the beginning of the next section.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
I was thinking this time, when you watch a film 11 times, you start to have thoughts. You start to think about other ways it could have gone. And I was just thinking, how different would this film be if Sater was like a Warren Buffett style billionaire? He's all about just reinvesting his wealth. He lives modestly. He drives like a Toyota Highlander, and the protagonist meets Kat at an Applebee's. What would that do to the tone of the film?
Inside are the most pathetic people in the city with nothing to live for. It's like Applebee's with a bar. Oh wait, Applebee's has a bar. It's like Applebee's.
What if Sir Michael Crosby was like, Brooks Brothers won't cut it, but because that's too nice, you need to go to Men's Warehouse. Here's the card. Here's a Visa gift card with $150 preloaded, and you need to get a new 3-piece suit.
You can get some Panda Express after you get your new 3-piece suit with the $12 you'll have left over.
He meets Kat at a Fuddruckers.
It's a funny thought experiment, but I think that the fact that Sater is so ostentatious with his wealth is an important part of the character, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Something I reflected on while I was watching this is just the character of Sater. We'll talk about this certainly more at the end when we get into our final thoughts, but also, of course, more as we get to know his character better. But it's really fascinating to think about him just essentially achieving all the success that he's achieved by doing exactly what the people in the future tell him to do. They must have just told him that this was the way he had to live, right? To get to have this life and get to be this important person. I felt that much more strongly on this close watch. I think we're supposed to understand him as a person who has relatively little autonomy and agency in his life, and he's essentially play acting as a powerful person. We can reflect on that more after. But I thought about Sater a lot during this watch. And I was like, I feel like if you're only casually watching, you don't really think about his character and the way he's interacting with other people. But he's really just a pawn for the future, and as a reward, he gets to be this incredibly rich Russian oligarch. But I don't know, it doesn't seem like a very good life. He's a bitter fucking prick.
He's suffering from success.
He's hugely suffering from success. Okay, so we're going to the free port now. So in the exposition that explained free ports, it was explained that a free port is this place. I think they're generally at airports, right? Mm-hmm. That is not a part of any municipality's tax base or like regulatory scheme, essentially. So this is the kind of place where like really rich people store stuff that has a really high like value per weight, right? Like things like paintings that are worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars that weigh like a pound, like you would store something like this as a free port at a free port because it's not going to take up very much space, but you really don't want it to be subject to, whatever taxes you might have to pay on it if you were storing it in a more normal place. And so we understand that Sator has a vault in one of these free ports and that this is where he's storing the painting that he's holding over Cat's head. We get a montage of Neil doing a tour of the free port. He's starting to make the plan. He's wearing a really cool suit in this scene. I just really cannot believe how cool the costuming is in this film. We get that great Freeport song that we heard earlier in the bungee sequence. And the tour guide explains to Neil that the way they do fire suppression isn't with water sprinklers, but with by flooding the facility with non-flammable halide gas, displacing all the oxygen. When it happens, an alarm gives staff in vaults 10 seconds to get out before the doors lock and they suffocate, to which Neil responds, "Blimey."
At least you give them 10 seconds.
Well, sir, our clients use us because we have no priorities above their property.
Blimey.
Neil and the protagonist discuss how they're going to trigger the fire suppression system and land on crashing a jet into the facility by driving it off the taxiway. We see them looking at floor plans of the facility, and there's a pentagon-shaped room in the center, which they see is not labeled. Its purpose is not labeled on the floor plan, but they think it must contain something important due to its size. And we get one of my 3 or 4 favorite songs in the score in this scene. And I think one of the things that makes it so special to me is the way its components are timed with the action. To your point earlier, this is not conventional film score, right? It's very... the music hardly works if you're not watching the movie, right? It works when I listen to it because it makes me remember the scenes in the movie. But I think if you just sat down and listened to the Tenet soundtrack, you'd probably think it was pretty weird. The song 747, it's mostly just this very quiet, methodical kind of like strumming. And then every once in a while, you get these like insane blares of like a tuba and trombone with some percussion. And it's just timed with significant shots in the scene. But I love the way it's deployed in this sequence.
This recap is insane, man. Were you not going to give me an opportunity to say anything about the Freeport sequence before we get into this 12-minute long sequence of the film?
You can cut in anytime you want.
I don't know if that's possible. Look, I want to talk about the Freeport sequence. I feel like we're moving into a distinct sequence of the film, as noted by the separation of tracks in the orchestral score.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
I feel like you really undersold how cool the Freeport sequence of this film is.
It's fair.
And yes, there's a seamless transition into the 747 stunt, but the Freeport sequence, it's an exposition dump. It's setting up this heist, but the way it is structured is so cool. It's essentially 3 different timelines being merged together in one scene. So first, chronologically, we have Kat telling the protagonist about the Freeport and her knowledge of it and what Sator uses it for. Then, second, chronologically, we have the protagonist telling Neil in a separate location things he should be looking out for when he's casing the joint. And then third, we see Neil actually touring the Freeport, and we get his perspective as he's looking out for things like the fire suppression systems. And as the song kicks in, it ramps up in intensity and volume, and the dialogue from the tour that Neil is being given fades away. And this is an aesthetic choice. This is a deliberate choice by Nolan. He is guiding us as audience members not to focus on the words being said, because the tour itself is not, the content of the tour is not important to him. What's important to Neil is what he's focusing on visually, and that's what we're forced to focus on as the viewer. I love that. I love how Nolan guides your attention. I feel like that's the sort of thing that the r/cinephile community doesn't like. It's too hard to hear. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I had to turn on closed captioning while I was second screening fucking TikTok videos pretending to watch a film. Oh, God. But yes, the transition over into this 747 sequence is seamless, and I really love how it truly is the calm before the storm.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think this is why, we're making such a great podcast. So you can interrupt me anytime if you feel like I haven't done justice to a sequence of the film. So the plane is revealed, and they have a third guy now who's with them. He's one of the people whose name I never noted, but he's with them a few times during the film. It doesn't matter. He's just like some third guy who's also a part of their crew. And there's a line here that always makes me laugh every time I hear it. The guy, he's impersonating I guess a meal delivery worker coming onto the plane to deliver food to the flight crew and the operations staff. And as he brings the food on, he walks around the corner and he says, "Is everybody here vegetarian? Because all I have is vegetarian." And it draws over one of the operations staff who comes around the corner, and you get a brief shot of the plate, and it's obviously meat. And he gets the guy to lean in really close to the plate and goes, "That doesn't look vegetarian to me." And it's just such a funny ploy. And then he what's it called when you chloroform? That's what it is. And he chloroforms him. So he knocks him out. He decommissions all the flight crew and all the operations staff and everything. And he tosses them all off the plane on the evacuation slide while the plane is in motion. We see a fourth heist guy who's with them steal one of the gold bars. I looked it up while I was taking these notes yesterday. Yesterday, when I took these notes, a gold bar was worth $1.5 million, a single gold bar. So I think it would be tough to not steal a single gold bar if you were doing a heist that involved pallets of thousands of gold bars.
Oh, listen, I would absolutely try to steal a gold bar if possible, but I think you wouldn't be able to in real life. They pack them. The netting is tighter so that they can't just slip out the way that he slid one out.
Yeah, you're probably right. But they're gonna, whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, sure, whatever. So as the plane is moving, they're dropping the pallets of gold bars off the back of the plane, essentially as a diversionary tactic. And as the plane is kind of driving off the jetway and toward the facility, we see it picking up cars in the dragnet of its wheels while it's driving. And this is one of the shots in the film that it's something that only Nolan, I feel really does in modern filmmaking, this kind of unbelievable action spectacle that really in the scheme of the film is kind of a throwaway. It lasts 10 seconds and it just looks really cool. It's just, he wanted to make something that looked this cool, but it's fucking incredible. Nobody makes action scenes like this. It's so cool.
Sure, this is peak Nolan. This is peak action blockbuster spectacle. Totally practical effect. I love that he's one-upping himself from The Dark Knight Rises. Obviously, the first sequence in that film, the plane heist, super cool, but they used a scale model plane for that sequence. Here, they got an actual decommissioned 747. They built the Freeport up as its own, structure and actually crashed it through. And you get a sense of scale in these shots that you simply could not get with a shot of a CGI plane. And the first shot of the 747, Hoyt van Hoytema has the camera looking pointed up at the underside of the jet's nose, and it just looks massive. And as this scene builds over the course of these 12 or so minutes, the music just becomes louder and louder. There are blaring horns, and it is so intense and overwhelming, and the speed of the 747 is relentless. It's such an incredible sequence, really worth the buildup.
I completely agree. Yeah, so cool. So we cut to Neil inside, Neil and the protagonist inside the Freeport. They're there with the guy, getting a tour ostensibly of the vault that they are going to lease. And we see the lights flicker and the warning alarm sounds. The tour guide just makes it out of the vault in time. We see him essentially slip through the door as it's closing, due to the halide gas about to fill the vault. We see the protagonist and Neil navigate the halide flooded vaults, looking for the painting and to get to that center compartment that they're curious about the contents of. You talked about the sound design in the earlier scene. I also really love the sound design in this scene. It has a suffocating dullness that I think really evokes this sense of both the airlessness of this room, just what it would feel like from an auditory perspective to be in a room that was filled with a gas that didn't convey sound vibration as well as the air we're used to does. But also we feel just how relentlessly focused these characters are on like moving between these rooms, right? This is an extremely high stakes, high pressure heist. They could die at any moment if they fuck up in some way and end up locked in one of these airless rooms. It's really, really, really cool. And to that point, we get a scene of one of the protagonist's lockpicks breaking while he's opening a door for them to move between rooms. They're almost suffocated, but they do get out just in time. They make it to the centermost room, and what's inside is the first turnstile. I'm not going to explain what the turnstile is yet because it's not explained in the narration until later, but note, this is the first turnstile that we see. We see the room is broken into two segments. So the turnstile is in the center of the room, and then bisecting the area of the room outside of the center where the characters are standing is a glass wall. And the two sides of the room are symmetrical. So there's two symmetrical sides of the room outside of the circular turnstile in the middle, bisected by a pane of glass. You're laughing at me, but I would challenge you to explain this.
I was just thinking
more succinctly and clearly than I am.
God help any citizen of De Niro Nation who didn't pause the episode to watch the film before coming back to it.
Oh my God. There are bullet holes in the glass between the two segments of the room. A masked figure emerges from the turnstile and begins attacking the protagonist. The masked figure is inverted. The protagonist overpowers his assailant, and just as he's about to kill him, Neil stops him. The assailant is sucked out of a nearby, it's like what do you call those kinds of doors? It's like a garage door, but it's not for a garage. Like one of those doors that are in like warehouses or like on the receiving docks of like large big box stores or whatever. Like you pull a chain and the door rises up essentially. So it's slightly pliable as far as like industrial grade doors go. So the assailant gets sucked out of that nearby door, and just as the authorities rush in, the protagonist and Neil pretend to have collapsed and suffocated in order to escape. After the heist, I'm almost to the end of the section. Don't worry. After the heist, we get a little epilogue of the protagonist and Neil in a hotel room, and the protagonist explains all the time travel and physics stuff to Neil at a high level. Neil doesn't seem thrown by any of it, which the protagonist finds a little bit suspicious, but Neil justifies it by explaining that he has a master's in physics. The protagonist goes back to India to see Priya, and she recommends that he offer to act as like a go-between to get some kind of plutonium or something for Sator that he wants in order to get close to him. And that is the end of this sequence.
Well, going back to the inverted fight, I mean, this is our first time seeing an inverted character, and I think it's important to note that when the turnstile rotates, that inverted character starts fighting the protagonist. On the other side of the turnstile, Neil's side, another guy who's wearing the same uniform, runs out and runs past Neil. So two men emerge from the turnstile at the same time.
I watched a great YouTube episode or video yesterday, which we'll link in the show notes, that explained the blocking and cinematography and editing of this scene. And to your exact point, how it does a really good job of kind of like showing this journey that the two combatants are on throughout this fight and how well it does work in both directions. And it's really cool. It's a very special scene. So this next segment is called With Kat and Sator. Okay. So it's going to end when the protagonist is no longer hanging out with Kat and Sator. So you can imagine when it's when it's going to happen. So now that this whole Freeport heist thing is over, Kat is going to introduce the protagonist to Sator because he tells her that he was able to successfully retrieve the painting from the vault. The protagonist visits with Sator on his yacht. And I just remarked here, and I do love this, we're like nigh halfway through the film. Like we're like 2/5 of the way through the film at this point. It's really cool that we don't meet the villain until this far in. And, you and me may disagree about Branagh's performance, but it's cool. It's a cool device to make us wait so long to meet him. What do you think about that?
I also agree with that. And I love that, due to Nolan's commitment to shooting practically as much as possible, this film, I mean, when we get that first conversation between the protagonist and Kat here, they are just in the most beautiful Star Wars Episode 1 Naboo looking fucking location humanly imaginable for this one.
But it's a real place.
2-minute long sequence. Yeah, it's spectacular. And I love that he's doing what you're supposed to do in these sorts of, spy films, which is take us around the globe. This film was shot in 7 countries. And that's what you want. That's one of the many reasons why I disliked the most recent Mission Impossible film, The Final Reckoning, because it felt like half of it just took place on a submarine and the middle of the Arctic. And I was just thinking, this is a nearly 3-hour long spy movie. Yep. Why am I not seeing beautiful exotic locations? Why am I just on a hunk of ice in the middle of the open ocean? It's depressing.
Yeah. Obviously, like Christopher McQuarrie, like I think on balance, I think he's done a nice job with Mission Impossible overall. But they should really let Nolan direct a Mission Impossible film if they make another one. I think that would be really cool. You think he'd do it?
I don't know. They gave James Bond to Denis Villeneuve, so who knows?
Yep. Oh yeah. I mean, I'm not asking whether they would do it. I mean, do you think he'd do it? Do you think he would direct like some big action franchise blockbuster? It's kind of at odds with his whole like pathos as a creative person.
Yeah, I mean, I really couldn't imagine any other one besides 007. Otherwise, I mean, he has carte blanche as a director nowadays, especially after Oppenheimer. He can make literally anything he wants. So,
Sloppenheimer. Yep.
Yeah.
So we get the sense here that Sator thinks that Kat and the protagonist are having an affair. He asks the protagonist, "Have you fucked my wife?" And the protagonist says, "Not yet," with a wry smile. He's invited to dinner. So he goes to the dinner and he sits next to Sator, who tells him all about how they're going to shove his balls into a hole in his throat to choke him. Quote, "It's very gratifying to watch a man you don't like try to pull his balls out of his throat before he chokes." The TP, I just finally said it. I'm like halfway through, but I haven't said it once. Every time I wrote the protagonist, I wrote it as TP in my notes, but really? I managed to say the protagonist every time when I've said it. Yeah, I finally just said TP. The protagonist says the magic words, quote, "Do you like opera?" Kind of cluing Sator into his knowledge of the Kiev opera siege. And that stops Sator from killing him. And Sator invites him to come sailing with him and Kat the next morning. We see a scene of Sator eating a meal with Kat on the boat that night, and he reveals to her that he actually still has the painting. He says his instincts told him to remove it from the vault. But, we know, right? And as I reflected on the character of Sator more, that like he doesn't actually have any instincts about anything, right? He just knows everything that is ever going to happen.
He's inside information.
Time travel. Like, yeah, he has inside information. So they go sailing the next day. Kat throws Sator off the boat, but the protagonist saves him. So let's take a moment here and talk about the sailing, right? You're doing a better job of describing these scenes than I am. Do you want to describe the sailing scene?
I mean, it's not just sailing. It's sailing on one of those fancy catamarans.
Okay, so is that what that's called? Yeah, I didn't even know what that was called.
So it's a very fast, very powerful, crazy boat with foils that kind of lifts up out of the water. It's a very intense process for them to sail this thing.
Yeah, it looks like something that only like a hyper athlete could do. Like this does not look like something that somebody who wasn't in like 95th to 99th percentile, like peak physical fitness would be able to do. It looks insane.
Right. You're hooked to it with a cable. Yep. It seems to be going very fast. You're getting blasted by water and you have to run across it from side to side to sail it, which seems
would kill almost anyone trying to do
you'd
this.
Slip immediately, bang your head, get a concussion.
It's a really cool scene. This scene also has a great song. I think it's called Sails, right? This the song in this scene.
It's called Foils.
Yeah. Foils. Windmills.
Oil rig.
I was just making another joke, just so you know.
Oh, were you?
You missed it.
Oh.
Because it said sails.
Hey,
like windmills
citizens
and oil rigs.
of De Niro Nation, please write us at ourherodeniro@gmail.com. Let me know if I'm out of line for missing Mike's jokes. Do you catch them when you're listening to the episode?
Yeah, we still haven't gotten any letters about this, I don't think. I think I asked this a few weeks ago, right? Write into ourherodeniro@gmail.com and tell us, do you think I'm funny? I'm like only nice answers, please. Only yeses. Don't write if the answer is no.
Yeah, don't ask a question if you don't want to know the answer.
Yep. So that night, Kat confronts the protagonist for saving Sator from her attempted murder, and the protagonist explains to her that Sator isn't just an arms dealer. He's much more powerful and important than she realizes he is, and much as she, feels this chagrin that he has power over her and her life, he holds everybody's lives in his hands. Sator invites the protagonist to have a drink with him. This is the first time we see him obsessing over his vitals. He's always looking at like this heart rate monitor that he's wearing on his wrist. It's important.
That's what happens, man. When you get a smartwatch or one of those fitness devices, it gamifies fitness, and you want to check those metrics. I love checking those metrics. I live for metrics.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm always looking at my Apple Watch. I got Snoopy here. I did the green today.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I have Snoopy, but he's gray. Yeah,
I change it.
I know you do.
I change it every day.
Oh, that's extra. Does anyone say extra anymore? What are things nowadays?
Hey, if you're under the age of 32, why don't you write it into ourherodeniro@gmail.com and tell us what some things are these days? What are some things that Mike and I should learn to say as middle-aged men?
If you're under the age of 32 and you listen to this Robert De Niro filmography rewatch podcast, then my hat goes off to you.
Yeah, you've listened to the first hour and 10 minutes of our Tenet recap. This episode's going to be 2.5 hours long.
Oh my God, it really is, man. It really is.
So in the scene, while they're drinking, Sator explains more fully his origins in Stalsk 12, which Sir Michael Caine had previously
This is
explained
another, when you rewatch the film and you watch it multiple times, I want to be able to hold the A button to skip cutscene.
So we see a flashback of him. And so when he was a young man, he was deployed in Stalsk 12 to find and remove plutonium to deradiate the area. He finds a briefcase that has a piece of the algorithm in it. That set of essentially amalgamated segments
we've been seeing.
Metal doohickeys throughout the film. He finds some papers in there as well about a gentleman named Andre Sator, whose identity we're to understand he's stolen, along with several gold bars and instructions on how to amass fortune and power to help the future. He kills his companion.
Did you say identity stolen?
Yes.
Why?
Because he finds Andre Sator's papers in the thing. That's not really who he is.
Really?
Yeah, there are papers in the briefcase that say Andre Sator on them.
Right. What makes you think he's not actually Andre Sator?
Oh, do you think? Oh, hey, you might be right. That might be a better interpretation. Do you think that the future left actual papers of his for him to get?
I mean, I think they addressed the letter to him. They would know who was there.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. Huh? They would know who was there. Yeah.
My interpretation was that they gave him a letter. They said, Mike the Fab, here's a gold bar. There's a lot more where that came from, but the first thing you need to do is kill the other guy with you, so there are no witnesses. Yep. Yeah, I don't think it was like he was like some guy named Jared or something, and he's like, oh shit, this is
From Subway.
Yeah. They put him in a work camp in Stalsk 12.
Oh my God. All right, fine. Yeah. Hey, listen, you know what? That's great. After all this time, and I haven't seen it 11 times, but I've probably seen it like at least 9 times.
Yeah, you unlock this information.
It's so fun that after watching this film so many times, we're still, we're learning new things about it. It's a lot of fun. We see a scene that night of Sator confronting Kat for attempting to kill him, and we don't see him do it, but he sets up to beat the shit out of her in a very terrifying way. He takes off his belt and he takes off these like crystalline like diamond cufflinks that he's wearing and starts to thread them through the holes in his belt, and that seems like it would be a horrible way to get beaten, doesn't it? With a belt with sharp cufflinks in the holes.
I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I condemn spousal abuse.
Same.
Oh, that's good.
In unambiguous terms.
I didn't want to speak for you, so it's the official perspective of the Our Hero De Niro podcast.
Yep.
Yeah, I think one thing that I like about Tenet is that it is rated R, but there isn't a lot of profanity. It's not gory or anything like that. I think you wouldn't have to cut much from it to turn it into a PG-13 action film. And I think this kind of the spousal abuse segments of the film are really all you'd have to remove, and maybe a couple of curse words.
It's pretty dark. Yeah.
But otherwise, I think this is the way that The Matrix was introduced to me, in my early adolescence or tweenhood. I think you could very easily do for someone with Tenet. Fast forward past the implied spousal abuse.
Yeah, I mean, Caroline and I have been talking about Tenet a lot around the house for the past few days, and so Nora was asking me about it, and I was thinking about it, and I told her, like, I think we can watch it when she's like 10. I think this is like a movie that is totally appropriate for a 10-year-old to watch. If, to your point, you fast forward through like a key 5 or 10 minutes of the film that maybe are a little dark in theming for a younger child. It's a great action movie in that way.
It's an experience.
It is. Yep. And we get one of my, there's so many Seder lines that I love. God, I love him so much. But we get one of my favorite Seder lines in this scene. So Kat asks him why he won't just let her go. And he says, I've punctuated it the way it's actually said. If I can't have you, no one else can. And then just as he's about to start beating her, he's called away. And I wrote here, and I really feel this, that Branagh, he really threads the needle between charisma and villainy. I think that, like, your issue, well, you know what? I shouldn't state what your issue is with Branagh's performance. I know what it is, but I should let you say it for the record. So what is your issue with Kenneth Branagh's performance as Andre Sator?
I just don't think he's menacing. I don't think he's particularly threatening.
I think that's the point. I don't know. I think he's just on fucking autopilot. Like, I really think that's like the point of the character. He's just taking direction. And he has found, because he has perfect knowledge, he is able to, in spite of being like this kind of slight, like not particularly physically menacing person, has managed to become this like titan, this like horrible like force through sheer force of knowledge rather than being physically imposing. It's really cool. It's a really cool way for a villain to be.
I get it. And listen, I love it. I wouldn't change it because I don't want the tone of the film to become more sinister and dour or whatever. But I mean, when he's threatening Elizabeth Debicki, the tallest woman on earth, and he's looking up at her, I can't help but think it's a little goofy, especially later in the film when we see him shirtless. He's just a little doughy, It's just kind of funny is all. It's a little goofy.
Yeah, I just think that's what it would actually be like. I mean, do you think the actual villains in the world are not a little doughy?
Sure. This is an action film. That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
It's like how in James Bond films, every supervillain has a disfigured face. You really think every supervillain would have a disfigured face? It's part of the movie language. It's cinematic.
That's the point I'm making. I'm saying this is acting in opposition to that. It's more grounded.
I'm saying there's a reason why
depiction of a villain.
Yes. Tenet, known for being grounded.
Oh my God. All right. So Sator's called away. He's got this delivery arriving, and the protagonist is in his room. He hears the chopper arriving and goes to watch the exchange clandestinely. He sees a delivery of inverted gold bars. We know they're inverted because Sator reaches his hand out and one of the bars flies out of the chest up into his hand. So cool. And we see that a henchman has stolen one of the bars and Sator beats him to death with it. Sator and his henchmen notice the protagonist and question him. I love this part. This part kind of makes me chuckle. And Sator says the line. He says, "We do live in a twilight world." And the protagonist responds, he responds, "Pretty. That Whitman?" And so we understand that he does not want Kenneth Branagh to know that he is a part of Tenet. And so the scene concludes with Sator agreeing to let the protagonist retrieve what he thinks is plutonium, whatever object it is that Sator wants retrieved. This is the end of a segment.
I think I made all of my points. I will say Sator beating the henchman to death with a gold bar was reminiscent to me of the baseball bat scene in The Untouchables when Robert De Niro as Mr. Untouchable takes the baseball bat. And
Mr. Untouchable is so funny. Like he's the fucking Fantastic Four. That's so good. Well, we got our obligatory Robert De Niro mention, so there we go. We're living up to the topic of the podcast.
Exactly. Which character do you think Robert De Niro would play in this film? Any age.
Sator, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think it would honestly be fucking incredible. Like that's one that I would take. I think he would play that role really well.
Oh, I think he'd be a lot more menacing than Kenneth Branagh. But
Yeah.
again, I think it would alter the tone of the film in a way that I wouldn't necessarily enjoy for rewatchability's sake. But yeah, I mean, you give that to a peak middle-aged De Niro. Oh yeah, he'd be scary.
So we're coming into the next section. This section is called Highway Heist. Okay. Yeah, it's very, very creative.
Oh
right?
man, how'd you come up with these?
Yep. And so I wrote here as my first note, I think this is Neil's coolest outfit in the whole film. If you don't remember it, he's wearing kind of slightly loose slacks with a rumpled jacket, a really dark shirt, and an extremely loose rumpled tie. And the collar of the jacket is like kind of fucked up. And it's, oh my God, it's awesome. He looks so cool in this scene. He and the protagonist are making their plan for the heist to take the plutonium. They're planning to take it while it's in transit. We see Sater go to a facility with a turnstile with Kat. He shows her some guns, and she's not happy to see that. And he describes it as the filthy business that put those clothes on your back and our boy in his school. We see him intimidate her, and she pulls a gun on him. This is probably my favorite Sater moment in the entire film, actually.
Yeah.
Do you like this moment?
You'd have to skip
Sater
it in
has
the
a
PG-13 cut.
You definitely would. Yep. So Sater has a really good song in the score as well. It's called Sater. This one I'm not gonna make a joke about. It's his theme song, and it, like the 747 song, has these moments of crescendo, of like immediate crescendo, essentially. And so Kat has the gun held on him, and he's not scared. And he says he knows she's not going to shoot him because, quote, "You're not angry enough, because anger scars over into despair. I look into your eyes and I see despair." And just as he says despair, the crescendo happens and he disarms her. And you don't find him a little bit scary in this role? Small people can be scary. But
Yeah, like the Wolverine.
I think that you would be scared of him if you met him in real life. So Sater overpowers her, takes the gun, and beats her. To your point, this is another scene we're going to have to cut out of our PG or PG-13 version of the film. He puts on a Bluetooth headset and enters the turnstile and says, "Tell me everything as it happens." And so I think this is our answer, right? Now we know that they have figured out how, like, this is the method by which the future is able to communicate with the past. Somehow they've managed to reverse the entropy of, I guess, like maybe like a radio signal or like a Wi-Fi signal or something, which makes sense that in the universe you'd be able to do this if these other things were true. The heist starts, I've written, and it's almost impossible to explain verbally. This scene's going to be a real challenge, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I've heard the rest of your recap. Oh man. Okay, listen. You say your things, and just I'll try to jump in when I can.
So essentially, Neil and the protagonist have arranged it such that they are going to box the truck from which they want to steal the plutonium in a series of a set of other vehicles to shield it from view from like the follow cars. So nobody can see what the protagonist is doing, that he's infiltrating the truck, that he's stealing whatever, etc. So we see the protagonist successfully breach the truck. He steals an orange case, and once he gets back to the car, he opens the case, but it isn't plutonium. It's another piece of the algorithm.
Metal
Those
doohickeys.
things they've been finding. Metal doohickeys. We saw one in the Kiev Opera House. We saw one that Sater found, etc.
I can already tell that you're about to skip over a critically important detail of this scene.
Hit me, baby. Yep.
The car that Neil is driving in this scene is an F10 generation BMW 5 Series sedan. Now, this is the V8 550 model, but you know who else drives an F10 BMW 5 Series sedan? Yours truly, bitch! I do drive the 535 Xi with a stage 1 tune, so it is just the inline 6-cylinder engine, but it's just as if it was meant to be that I get to drive the hero car in one of my favorite films.
I think it's like incredibly offensive that you didn't think I was going to mention that. It's the next bullet in my recap.
Was it really?
No, of course not.
I was going to give you a lot of credit for thinking of such an obscure detail.
So now we see some cars driving backwards, inverted, and we get a car chase between one car that's normal and one car that has inverted entropy.
Right.
I cannot
the car that's
explain
normal
it
is
well.
is Neil and the protagonist's car.
I cannot explain this scene well at all. What I will say is that this is the part of the film that I have watched every time I've watched it and thought, there's no fucking way this makes sense. Like, there's no way this would actually make sense if you looked into it. But I actually did. I sat down last night. I read some articles. I watched some YouTube videos that like kind of deconstruct the scene and explain it. And I think it actually does make sense. So I don't know. Do you want to do like a shot by shot of everything that happens in the scene? I don't think I could possibly do it succinctly, verbally. You should watch it if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, you really need to watch this film. I don't think we need to do a shot by shot breakdown because we'll be here for 4 hours. But it's a really cool chase scene. This is actually the point in the film when I watched it for the very first time where I consciously realized that I no longer understood what was happening. But it's very cool. The chase is between Neil and the protagonist driving that BMW 550i sedan, and there is apparently an inverted Audi SUV driving in reverse following them. Now, just two things here. Well, maybe three. I don't know. I'm bad at keeping count. One, let it be known that BMWs are hero cars and Audis are villain cars. I think that's a very important distinction when it comes to the brands. Two, they'd have to do something. How difficult is it to alter a car to be able to drive that fast in reverse, highway speeds? It's not possible, is it? Because of the gearing.
Well, you'd have to shift the gearing.
Yeah.
Right? But I have to imagine, now that you say it, that there would be other issues, right? Like, I think even shifting the gearing would not be enough. I cannot imagine that the rear axle of a car is set up to take that much force.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like, even if you did shift the gearing, like I think the car would still like explode if you tried to drive it in reverse at like 75 or 80 miles an hour. Like, not explode, but I think the axle would like disintegrate. Like, I don't think it's like, I don't think it's built to handle that kind of force.
Right. And the last point, not that I'm trying to nitpick this film because I love it, but even if you're inverted driving a car, wouldn't it still be easier to be pointing in the correct direction? Because you would still wouldn't you still want to look out of the windshield, even if your turning was opposite what you're expecting? The driver of this Audi SUV is going in reverse to our eyes, so they would still have to like look behind through the little rearview mirror, right?
You don't understand the scene. Yeah, I'm telling you, like, that you don't understand it. It doesn't make any fucking sense. It's very difficult to understand.
Well, I guess
the driver going in reverse is not chasing the hero car.
That's true.
The driver going in reverse is running away from the hero car.
From his perspective.
From his perspective.
Oh my God.
I find it like mind bending. Like, really, like we're not even going to try to explain it because like I didn't understand that. I was not able to like really accept that until I like spent time like really trying to understand it last night.
These are the things that confusing. I forget, but you're right. I mean, yes, the Audi SUV is trying to drive away from the BMW. Right. So I guess they don't have to alter these cars.
So weird.
Oh my God.
All right, where were we on my notes here? Okay, so in the car that's going in reverse, the Audi, an inverted satyr has a non-inverted cat held captive. Satyr uses his having cat imprisoned to get the protagonist to toss the orange case to him. He does, and after he gets the case, he leaves the car while it's still in motion. The protagonist jumps from the BMW into the Audi and stops it just in time to save Kat. Neil stops the BMW, exits his car, and is ambushed by bad guys. We see Satyr's main henchman guy, who's another guy who has a name, by the way, that I like never noted or learned, captures the protagonist and brings him into the turnstile facility.
I don't know his name either, but he is so tall and lanky and has such a square, bald head. He looks like a Universal movie monster. It is really incredible casting.
He looks like Agent whatever the fuck from Hitman.
Agent 47?
Agent 47, yeah.
He reminds me more of Frankenstein's monster. To each their own.
Da Monster.
Da Monster.
As
That's
you
right.
Call him. Yeah. So here's the scene, just so you know. This is one of the scenes in the film that I find the most confusing. So we see the protagonist
luck, buddy.
we see the We see the protagonist in the turnstile room. And so the protagonist is traveling in the normal temporal direction, but Sator is on the other side of the window. So he's inverted. And he and the protagonist have a conversation, but for some reason they can understand each other. Do you understand this? Why can they understand each other?
I thought they were like speaking through a device in the wall.
Maybe there's like a device that's reversing it.
Yeah, that reverses it. So
okay, that's cool. Yep.
Yeah, because the protagonist is on the blue side of this turnstile, moving forward through time along with us, and Sator's in the red side, moving backwards in time, but he's still wearing the earpiece or something like that. So when we are following this scene, we're with the protagonist. We're looking at it from his perspective. So the protagonist speaks first, and then you hear Sator speaking normally, and then you see Sator's lips move, and he's speaking in reverse. So I think there's some sort of like translation occurring.
That makes sense. Yeah. This is why we're here. And so we see inverted Sator shoot regular Cat with an inverted bullet, which we understand is very bad for some reason. I don't think we really understand why. And then regular Sator shows up. So this is non-inverted Sator. So this is like a second Sator who is in the blue side of the turnstile with the protagonist.
Oh, God.
Storms in, and he's about to shoot the protagonist, but just as that's about to happen, good guys show up and save him, and Sator enters the turnstile, and it is revealed that the Sator who the protagonist has been talking to is just making that transition just now, essentially. Like, this all makes sense, like, if you're watching it, if you really think about it, but I really feel like now that we're getting into, like, the parabolic part of the film, like, where things start to be depicted, like, at their fulcrum point, it really is, like, it's a uniquely impossill thing to explain verbally. Like, trust me, it all makes sense if you watch it 9 times. Like, you'll understand all of it.
I have such a funny note to make in a minute. I'll raise my hand when it's time.
And so now that we've seen that this is the way it was, we see the scene again from the other perspective, right? So the first time we saw it, Sator was inverted and the protagonist was going in the normal direction. Now we see it from inverted Sator's perspective, and so now we see the protagonist traveling in reverse through time, essentially. It's really neat. Neil's there too, and he and the good guy commandos who've shown up seem to know each other, and the protagonist is a little bit suspicious about that.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit.
He jams Neil up.
Yep. Kat is seriously injured, and Ives, who's one of the good guy commandos, explains that she needs to become inverted for a while to heal.
Okay.
For some reason. Yep. All right, go ahead. Yep.
So Ives is played by Aaron Taylor Johnson. And I made a note here when I was watching the film that I wanted to tell my little anecdote about watching Kraven the Hunter, a film from last year in which he starred as the titular character. But here's the thing. I was looking at my notes just now, and I have the Letterboxd page for Kraven up next to it. The actor's name is Aaron Taylor Johnson, but when I was writing my notes when I watched the film earlier this week, completely unironically, sincerely, I said, Ives played by Jonathan Taylor Thomas, star of Kraven the Hunter. I don't know why that happened in my brain, but the wires were crossed. I don't really have much to say about Kraven. It's a bad movie, but I remember watching it because I was sick with a horrible stomach bug that I caught at my practicum last year. It was or earlier this year. It was back in April or May, and I just for 3 days straight, I was laid up in bed. I couldn't eat. All I had for 3 days was soup, water, and Gatorade, and I lost 5 pounds. So I was just in this fugue state, and I watched a bunch of bad movies, and Kraven was the perfect film to watch while slipping in and out of consciousness. It was so
like
boring.
A NyQuil coma.
Yeah. So shout out to Aaron Taylor Johnson for helping me through that difficult time in my life.
It's so funny. So she's got to become inverted to heal. So the protagonist and Neil bring her through the turnstile to go backward in time for a while. Now we get Ives explaining the proving window. So now we have the name, right? So we didn't ever define it explicitly, but I think it's become very clear through the description of what's happened in the film, right? So the turnstile is the device that reverses an object's entropy, right? And so the window between the bisected segments of the room is called the proving window. And so when you're about to walk through the turnstile, you need to look at the other side to see if you're coming out, because if you aren't, then you shouldn't go in there because you're going to die inside of the turnstile, essentially. So I've explains this, just some fun, like sort of world building for the scene, and that cat will need to be inverted for 4 to 5 days to have time to heal. They're going to go to the Oslo Freeport from the earlier scene, which we know has a turnstile in it that they'll be used to essentially re-reverse themselves from being inverted. And they're going to look for a shipping container that was just dropped off from Oslo, so they can try to ride that back in time to the Oslo Freeport.
Yeah.
Yep. Got anything else you want to say?
I mean, are you not going to mention one of the key phrases of this film?
What's the phrase? What did I miss?
Ives tells the protagonist that they're running a temporal pincer movement.
Yep.
I feel like that is a phrase that we've used so many times since 2020 when this film came out. I can't believe he didn't call it out right there.
So he comes out and he's inverted now, the protagonist, and a lady explains you can't breathe inverted air. So the protagonist is going to need an air tank. Can't come into contact with himself. That will result in, quote, annihilation. Heat is cold. Gravity is reversed. Friction is reversed. And I write, I'm not sure any of this makes sense. And I really don't think it does. The protagonist exits the facility. Of course, everything is moving in reverse. We see him get into a car and he starts driving and it's all fucked up.
Let me just say.
Yeah.
I did the math here. This is a thought that I had after watching the film 6 or so times. If you start Tenet at 10:29 p.m. and 2 seconds on New Year's Eve, it'll hit New Year's right when the protagonist enters the world inverted.
Okay.
I think we should try that some year. Break out the vodka sodas.
This year, man.
Vodka sodas and Diet Coke and have a Tenet New Year's Eve.
I'd love to drink a nice caffeinated Diet Coke at 11:30 p.m. That sounds like a great idea.
I'm going to pull an all-nighter.
40 milligrams of caffeine at midnight. And so I write here, and this is, for me, this is where, like, I think it becomes a little bit difficult to understand. I sent this to you yesterday in our chat. I think the mechanics of complex machines like cars are very confusing in this universe. What makes the car's entropy reverse? The fact that the protagonist is touching it? How do the rules of this universe distinguish between a large machine composed of smaller parts, like a car, and the entire world itself? Why does the entire world not match the protagonist's entropy due to him touching stuff? Like, and this is like one of those things that you just have to like not think about, I guess, but it's like, you know, there's no difference between the way the steering wheel is a component of a complex machine like a car and the way a steering wheel is part of the complex machine of the entire world, right? It's all just subcomponents and components. So like there's no real way in the universe to explain why being handled by an inverted person inverts something as complicated as a car as like a whole object and not everything. That's all a part of the mechanism of the world.
Well, isn't it just his experience of interacting with the car that's inverted? The car is still driving normally, but if he wants to turn right, he has to do the opposite movement with his body, right?
Right, but why would the car be inverted? So he presses down on the gas pedal.
Yeah.
And the response that it makes it have is the opposite response that it would have if it were not inverted. He presses down on the gas, and in non-inverted time, it drives backwards. Why would him pressing down on the gas pedal not just make it drive to him backwards, forwards? He's still just pressing down on the gas pedal. Like it's all fine. You're not supposed to think about it very much. Like it's all
and
fine.
I never
it's all
have
gravy. But
in 11 watches.
But I thought about it a lot while I was watching, and I don't think it really makes any sense. But whatever, it's still really fun. And so now we see the highway heist scene from before play out in reverse. Sater flips the protagonist's car, and he ends up engulfed in an explosion of flames, which, because his entropy is inverted, are cold. and he wakes up from hypothermia under a space blanket in a shipping container.
Yeah, the mechanics of that don't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm willing to move past it for Christopher Nolan's sake.
Yeah, sure. Yep.
I mean, the cool thing about that scene is that now that we're watching it in reverse from the protagonist's perspective, he is in the Saab that was used during the handoff between the protagonist earlier to Sator when he bounces the container, presumably holding the doohickey, which is really cool. And they make eye contact. So we didn't know this the first time through this chase scene, but now we know that originally the first time around the protagonist saw himself. And I think that's how he knew to make the handoff. It's crazy shit. It's one of those films where you have to watch it twice.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point. I don't think that I've ever made that connection. That's really cool. So the protagonist awakes under his space blanket and asks Neil who recruited him. And Neil responds, "It can't possibly do you any good to know that now." The protagonist asks Neil what the algorithm is. Quote, "It's a formula rendered into physical form, so it can't be copied or communicated." End quote. I'm paraphrasing now. Whose purpose is to invert the entire world. And what will happen? End of play. Everyone and everything that's ever lived destroyed. And Kat jumps in and asks, "Including my son?" To which I just write, LOL.
Wow. You know what? I wasn't going to challenge you on this because I agree. It made me laugh out loud when I heard it, but I don't think she was asking. I think she was saying. I think she was adding on. That was her personal interpretation of Neil's statement, including my son.
Could be. Yep, yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Yep.
Listen, citizens of the Nero Nation, anyone who's watched this film, what did you think of Kat's inflection on that statement?
So that's the end of a segment, just so you know.
Oh, okay.
Anything you want to say?
Yep. I feel like I just said my thing. So
we're back to the Freeport. So they're in Oslo, but they've been left in the container outside of the Freeport facility. Their plan is to use the 747 crash and its distractions to sneak into the facility. And so now we start to realize as viewers, right, that the protagonist and Neil were the attackers from the earlier Freeport sequence.
Coolest shit ever.
We see the protagonist surprised by the explosion of the jet engine and blown into the sliding door, which we saw the non-inverted protagonist's assailant blown out of earlier, and we see the fight from earlier begin in reverse. We know now, of course, that inverted protagonist can't let the regular version of him realize who he is. He manages to get into the turnstile and runs out past Neil. This is the person whom we saw run out past Neil, who you alluded to earlier. Neil catches him and sees who it is, and gets startled and lets him go, essentially. He doesn't want to change the past.
As if the rest of the film didn't sell me, this really sells me on the film. I love what's happening here. I love that we're re-experiencing earlier events in the film from a different perspective. And this is so cool because when we're watching the film now play out in reverse chronology, when the fight starts, at first, the past protagonist has the upper hand, but halfway through, the current protagonist wearing the uniform covered up suddenly starts blocking his previous self's hits because he's able to anticipate the moves because he's already lived through this. It's so crazy. It's so mind-blowing to watch. And of course, you're understanding, what you saw playing out in the opposite direction beforehand. It's so fucking cool. I love that shit.
Something else that I would share that I think is an enhancement to your interpretation of the scene that I think is also really cool because it's revealing of some of the mechanics or inherent dimensions of this experience in this universe are the other reason why the kind of dominance in the fight shifts throughout is because each of them is experiencing the fight in the opposite direction temporally of the other person, right? So the forward traveling protagonist gets better at the fight as he progresses through it because he's learning the other guy's moves, but it's going in the other direction for the other one. So the forward moving protagonist is better at the fight at the beginning of the fight for the one
so they're
who's
both
inverted.
Improving as the fight goes on.
Right,
Oh
they're both
my
improving
God.
as the other one's skill is degrading. It's so cool. Like it is one
man.
of the coolest fights in film history. And this is the YouTube video that will link in the show notes. In this YouTube video, they show the way these scenes are blocked, subtle variations in the camera angles and in the centering of the subjects of the scene, as well as in the way the sound design is done from the vantage point of the kind of masked inverted assailant versus the suited protagonist. And the way that Nolan and the creative team do these pair of scenes is so subtle, but it just does it's like a masterclass in like subtle visual and audio storytelling to convey these like really implicit things about what the characters are experiencing. It's absolutely amazing. It's so cool. Okay, so they get out. Everything's hunky-dory, and the protagonist asks Neil why he didn't tell him earlier what he'd seen in the Freeport. Neil says, the policy is to suppress. And the protagonist asks, whose policy? And Neil says, ours, my friend.
Yeah.
We're the people saving the world from what might have been.
Oh,
huge bong rip. The music drops, like, so cool. Kat wakes up. She's going to be okay. And the protagonist asks Neil to set a meeting between him and Priya. And when they go and meet, he confronts her. She was expecting to meet Neil, and she explains that the algorithm was developed generations in the future and that the scientist who developed it killed herself lest she be compelled to make another copy. She makes a parallel to the moment of the Manhattan Project. This is referenced discreetly in the film Oppenheimer, when Oppenheimer and the scientists were worried that triggering a nuclear explosion might destroy the world, but they decided to go forward anyway. And so Nolan is drawing a contrast, right, between this more beneficent, more virtuous future scientist and the past scientists from the Manhattan Project who did this unthinkable evil of creating nuclear weapons, right? And we'll talk about this more in our wrap up. But essentially, that's like what this film is about, right? Like it's trying to create essentially a more terrifying version of super weapons for us to engage with as viewers, to kind of think about the horror of nuclear war in I think a slightly different way. She explains the algorithm was split into 9 pieces and hidden in the past, and that past is now, the time that they're living, and that Sator is funded and directed by the future to find the algorithm. He's found all 9 of the sections, and she revealed that the protagonist has been essentially used by her and by Tenet to lose the algorithm, to trick Sator into bringing all 9 of the pieces together so they can find a way to get them back. The protagonist is going to use Kat as an in with past Sator in this time, because Sator in this period of time doesn't know that he and Kat have had this schism because it hasn't happened yet. And Priya says, you see, Tenet wasn't founded in the past. It will be founded in the future. Huge bong rip.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They have Kat on a boat with them, and they're explaining how Sator's heart rate monitor that he keeps on checking is a dead man's switch. When he dies, the location of the algorithm will be revealed and end the world. He has inoperable pancreatic cancer from all the plutonium he was digging for back when he was a young man. And he's going to take the world with him when he dies. And Kat notes that this is similar to what he said to her earlier in the film. If I can't have you, no one can. If he can't have it, the world, then no one can. Kat is going to impersonate herself in this time on the yacht to trick Sator. Protagonist hangs with Ives at some kind of training facility. We see some really cool, like totally throwaway shots here in this part, but it's really neat of like these commandos doing stuff with inverted munitions, like, guns flying up off the ground into their hands that are inverted training. And like stuff like that. And it's all really neat. Like, it's just like really fun shots.
I mean, we also get a great shot when the protagonist is on that boat going in reverse. We get this great external shot of him just doing pull-ups on the exterior of the boat. And I'm just like, again, it's like that's that cool action movie protagonist shit. Who wouldn't want to be able to do pull-ups while they're just chilling on a boat waiting for this incredible final fight?
Yep. So Kat and the protagonist say goodbye. He gives her a flip phone and tells her to call him if she needs help. And she asks, who gets the message? And he says, posterity.
Oh, baby.
Oh, baby. the Stalsk battle starts. They're here to fight over the algorithm. I don't really understand this. So does Sator have an army, or is it like the Future's army? Who are they fighting?
They're fighting Sator's goons, right?
Yeah, but there's like that many of them? Sator has like an entire army?
I don't know. He's like a billionaire.
Hundreds of people?
Oligarch. Like, sure, you can employ some PMCs or something. The way that Tenet exists on the good guys' side, there must be an organization that has other
like on the bad
agents
guys' side.
like Sator. Yeah.
So this scene is also extremely challenging to explain. It's kind of similar to the heist scene. So here's how it's happening mechanically. So there's a red team and a blue team.
Yeah.
And so the way that the operation is structured, it is, as Mike alluded to with the line that I've said earlier, which was really kind of like a pre-read to this moment in the film. It's a temporal pincer. That's the operation that they're doing. And so the blue team, they start in the future and invert themselves and go back and experience everything that has happened in reverse. And then they give that intel they have gained to the red team that's traveling forward.
Okay.
And so there's just this, this recursive exchange of information that happens at both the beginning and the end of this operation that gives the combatants like otherworldly perfect information about what's going to happen.
Yeah, two teams operating simultaneously. Fucking crazy. One going forward through time, one going backwards. Oh.
And so we see these moments throughout the sequence that I think are essentially just like Nolan doing stuff that are like cool shots to do. But the way he depicts it and frames it is they're like these very specific things that the operatives are doing because they know exactly what is going to happen. So like there's a moment, this is like one of my favorite shots in the entire film. There's a moment when like one of the bad guys shoots a building with like a rocket from a rocket launcher, and the good guys know exactly when that's going to happen, and they're like looking at a watch to like time exactly when they're going to do it, and they fire another rocket at the other part of the building at the exact same time, I think essentially as like suppressing fire to like stop it from like exploding too much. And like it's just like it's totally fucking stupid. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens in the scene and it's like, well, why would you need to do this?
Well,
but like I think it's just to make these really cool shots of buildings exploding in reverse happen, basically.
Yeah, I think we're thinking of the same moment in that final fight. It was the good guys. It was red team and blue team working together
To explode the building?
Yeah. It was
Why?
Either to cause a distraction or to take out a sniper, or something. Because I think they see that it's wobbling. Members of both sides, red team and blue team, and so they both look at their watches and they wait for the minute to count down to the zero.
Oh,
and then they both fire. So they're synchronizing.
Well, one of them shooting it puts it back together.
Right. And that's how it's experienced for the other team. Yes, they're doing it. To bring it back, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
It's so fucking crazy, man.
It's so confusing. A whole bunch of shit happens in this scene. It's not really of particular importance.
This is a recap being delivered by two people who have watched the film at least 9 times each.
So while this is happening, there's a parallel scene happening of Kat on the yacht. And so, current timeline Kat, right? The Kat who was shot with the inverted bullet, the Kat who traveled back in time to heal with Neil and the protagonist. She is back in time. This is, I think, supposed to be around the time of the Kiev opera siege, or like maybe like shortly thereafter.
Yes.
And she is pretending to be the version of Kat from that time who didn't know about any of this shit. She didn't know that Sator is like super villain. She hadn't met the protagonist yet. So she's essentially pretending to be a more ignorant version of herself. And Sator is also that version of himself, the version from the same period of time who has all the same information that future Kat has. Mm-hmm. But he has also gone back in time to go on the yacht because this is the moment when he's going to kill himself to reveal the algorithm. And he wants to spend that final moment with Kat and Max. And so he goes to do that, essentially. And so there's a scene that is sort of like these sequences are interspersed with one another. So the action sequence is interspersed with scenes of Kat essentially stalling Sator, stopping him from killing himself, trying to give the protagonist and the other Tenet folks enough time to bury the algorithm such that it cannot be found, even though Sator's dead man switch is going to reveal its location. So a bunch of shit happens. Kat successfully stalls Sator, whatever, etc. But Neil is on the blue team. He's going back in time.
Yes.
Protagonist and Ives are on the red team, going forward in time. I didn't even try to write any of this shit down, so I'm doing this from memory right now.
Good luck.
They go into this little bunker, essentially, right in the center of Stalsk 12, which is where Sator's main goon, Agent 47, is going to hide the algorithm. And as they get there, Sator's main goon takes a shot at the protagonist, but a masked man jumps in the path of the bullet and is killed, but saves the protagonist's life. And somehow the goon is decommed in this moment too, right? But I don't remember exactly what happens.
I think the protagonist manages to get
he manages to take him out. Yeah. And so we see that the guy who took the bullet to save the protagonist has the same little brass trinket on an orange string that we saw the person saving him in the opera siege at the beginning of the film had. At the same time, Kat gets super, super pissed. She just can't handle Sator's bullshit anymore. And so she shows him that she has the scar from having been shot by him by the inverted bullet. And so he realizes, oh, this isn't past Kat. This is my present Kat. So
Whoops.
She's whoopsies, shouldn't have trusted her, shouldn't have told her all this stuff. And just as he's about to approach her and decommission her the same way he did before when she had a gun pointed at him, she shoots him and pushes him off the boat, and he falls to his death in a pretty comical fashion. He as he falls off the side, he kind of bangs his head on one of the railings of the boat, and it makes that sort of a jokey thud sound.
I can't believe you think he's an intimidating villain. When in this final scene of him in the film, he's shirtless and he's kind of lounging on his side on his yacht furniture. He looks like George Costanza when he did the modeling gig. He looks like a teddy bear. I just want to give him a hug. I want to say thanks for Frankenstein.
So I misstated something earlier. So they aren't trying to bury the algorithm. They're trying to make sure the algorithm doesn't get buried, right? So they manage to get the algorithm out, the protagonist and Ives, and they meet Neil outside of the bunker. And he is traveling in the same direction as them in time now. And the protagonist says something to the effect of hey, I thought you were with Blue Team. And Neil says, no big deal. I'll get him on the next pass. And so they have this conversation, and Ives is all right, here's the deal. We're each going to take a third of this thing, and we're going to hide the pieces in far-flung locations around the world, and then we're going to kill ourselves so we can never tell anybody. And the protagonist is will you really find us if we don't kill ourselves? And Ives is yeah, I will. And
oh my God.
What's wrong?
No, nothing. I'm just enjoying the ride, man.
and the protagonist says, yeah, but you won't look very hard, will you? And Ives says, no, I will. But it doesn't seem like he really is going to try very hard. And so then as they are about to go their 3 separate ways to deposit the algorithm in 9 separate locations around the world, the protagonist gives Neil gives his third to the protagonist and says, actually, I have to go into the bunker for a minute. And so it's revealed in this scene that Neil was the one, right? Neil was the one who saved the protagonist at the opera siege at the beginning of the film. He was the one who sacrificed himself, going back in time, going in reverse time, inside of the bunker to save the protagonist. And so he is going into the bunker now to reverse himself in the turnstile in the bunker so that he can be there to save the protagonist's life. And Neil reveals that the protagonist is the founder of Tenet, that he was the one who recruited him in the future.
Oh, yeah.
And that Neil and future version of the protagonist, the man he'll be some years in the future, have been on all kinds of adventures together. And so for Neil, this mission that they were on together was their final mission together. But for the protagonist, it was their first mission that they ever went on together. And it's just so fucking cool. It's like the coolest thing ever in a movie.
This
it's
whole
so
operation's a temporal pincer.
That's right. It's such a good line.
Oh my God. The whole fucking film is a temporal pincer.
It's so cool. It's incredible. And it's just like, it's the ultimate like bromance ending because they just get to be together forever. Like, it's so cool, right? They're just like in this recursive cyclical loop of like each always ending their story at the beginning of the other person's story. And like, that's so cool.
I love
it so much. It justifies everything in the film that doesn't make any sense.
And the end of a bromance. Incredible.
It's so cool. Yeah. Oh, I love it. And so, that's the end of Neil's character. He goes into the bunker to sacrifice himself. We get a final sort of coda, like little epilogue scene of the protagonist. No, how do I describe it? No, I guess of Kat. So Kat is standing outside of Max's school, and she's looking a little bit worried, and she picks up her phone and makes a phone call. And then we get a cut to a shot of Priya. She's sitting in a car looking at Kat, kind of from across the street, the way the protagonist was looking at her when we first met her earlier in the film. And the protagonist gets into the back seat of the car, and she says, "How did you know I would be here?" And he just points at the phone and says, "Posterity."
Plays the voicemail.
Right. Oh, plays the voicemail. Yep. And then he says, I thought you said that you weren't going to kill Kat, and you gave me your word. And Priya says, "And I told you then what it would be worth."
Damn.
And so he kills her. And that's pretty cool, by the way. It's like a little coda just kind of like explaining the mechanics of the universe. Like, it's just neat because she can call and leave the voicemail anytime, right? And he'll get it.
Yeah.
Because he travels through time, and then he can just be there instantly. Like, he can make the warning and he can be there 1 second later. Like, that's pretty neat. And that's the end of the film. Tenet.
Yeah, and then the plan by Travis Scott starts blaring.
Yes, and then the plan by Travis Scott starts blaring. Yeah.
Oh man,
what'd you think? How'd I do on the recap? How many stars do you give me out of 5?
It was a fine recap. I'm not going to give it a star rating.
Oh, come on.
It's like a 2.5 hour long recap. The recap is as long as the film.
It's a 2.5 hour long movie.
Yeah. Recapping the events in real time.
All right. So I have a couple of conversation topics for us here.
Okay.
Before we do our final thoughts. So here's our first topic for discussion. There is a very common interpretation of the film online that I'm sure you're familiar with, that Neil is an adult version of Kat's son, Max. There are little clues peppered throughout the film, or what viewers perceive as clues. Do you buy this theory?
Not for a second. I don't like this theory. I don't think there are any actual clues in the film. I think this is just desperation on the part of Reddit sleuths trying to create, they're just creating this fiction in their minds. There's nothing about the way the film is shot or the lines delivered that suggests any familiarity between Neil and Kat before they're on the shipping container together.
Man, it seems like there would have to be, right? Like, I mean, even if you were a really cool operative like Neil is, like, I don't know, man. Like, I feel like if you saw your mom, like how you remember her when you were like 9 years old or whatever, like, I think that would be pretty emotional for you. I think there would be at least a break, like for a second.
And Nolan would have some sort of shot, a lingering shot of Neil's reaction when he sees Kat wake up for the first time.
Looking at her kind of wistfully or something.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm inclined to agree with you. And another thing that folks think online, although I think this one is less common, is that a repo is the protagonist in some way, or an operative of the protagonist.
I'd never heard that one before.
Well, since giving Kat the painting ends up being kind of the impetus for all of this.
That's crazy.
So you haven't heard that one? I don't buy that one.
I mean,
I just wanted to share these some Tenet conspiracy theories that I've read online that I wanted us to talk about for a minute.
Is it not enough for these audience members to simply enjoy what they actually watched? They have to somehow make it extend even further.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I agree. So there you go. So Mike, What are your final thoughts? What do you think of Tenet?
Listen, I think it goes without saying that this is a 5-star film for me. If you visit my Letterboxd profile, that's letterboxd.com/Mike back at you, you'll see that my top 4 films are occupied by Tenet 4 times in a row. Here's the thing about Tenet. I love everything that it's doing, and I think that people are too focused on its faults. It is... Yep. I mean, it's admirable. It is a completely original sci-fi concept inversion. Nolan totally commits to it without holding the audience's hand. It's such a mind bender in the way that The Matrix is. It's forcing you to rethink cause and effect. I love the fact that structurally speaking, the film is a palindrome. The form isn't just aesthetic, it's thematic. It's connected to everything the movie is saying and trying to do. And I mean, I don't know. For me, all of its other faults can be excused by the fact that it is doing something truly unique. When we saw the film for the first time and the protagonist inverts, and the fact that we end up chronologically right back at the beginning of the film, I mean, when is the last time you saw something completely unique in a movie? You know, that something totally unique in that art form. I think that is so cool. The coolest thing in the world. The pacing is excellent. There is never a dull moment. The thing about Tenet compared to other Nolan films, you know, I understand other people rating other Nolan films more highly. I don't know if I would call Tenet the best Nolan film, but it's by far the most rewatchable. When I think about other Nolan films, Oppenheimer. Listen, I love the film, but that last hour, it's kind of a drag compared to the first 2/3. Interstellar, another incredible film. But as I told you and Caroline the last time we saw it for its IMAX re-release, you spend the first third of the film on Earth wandering through cornfields. It takes an entire hour to get to the really good space stuff. So yeah, the fact that I can throw Tenet on and it is just balls to the wall, practical effects, relentless action, and sci-fi gimmickry the entire time, I absolutely love. I think that there are these arguments that people make against it. Again, I'm thinking of just the classic Reddit r/movies film bro saying things like it's too confusing, or I couldn't hear what the characters were saying. Oh, the protagonist, you know, it's underdeveloped emotionally. And I don't know. I think it's just a problem that sort of film bro has with vibes movies. And that's what Tenet is. You know, people will complain about a film having style over substance. But I argue that for a film like Tenet, the style is the substance. And this is Nolan just flexing his action sci-fi spectacle muscles in a way that no other director is capable of doing. I like that he withholds clarity in favor of experience, and that is why I just love returning to this film year after year, time after time. I'm ready to watch it again after having this conversation with you. It's
I almost
not
watched
tiring
it again
at all.
last night.
Yeah, it's not a tiring
Caroline
film.
and I had an argument. Caroline and I had an argument about Tenet at dinner last night.
It's messed up.
We were arguing about whether I alluded to it in my recap. What did I say? I alluded to the line, the detritus of a coming war. And so Caroline was telling me that one of the things that she doesn't like about Tenet is that she doesn't understand what that line means. Like, is that about the Stalsk 12 conflict, or is that about some other future conflict? And I just I don't even understand the point she's trying to make. Like, I was like, who cares?
I was about to say, what does it matter?
Why do you want to know that? Like, and I made the actually the allusion to something like John Wick, and I think the first John Wick is such an exceptional film. And I don't dislike the sequels as much as you do, but I think that they're quite bad compared to the first one. And I think part of what makes it so bad is it tries to explain shit. No one fucking watched the first John Wick and was like, well, gosh, how does he get that hotel room for only two of those coins? I really need to understand the economy of the John Wick assassin universe.
Right.
Like, it's like similar, like all these specifics in Tenet. It's like, I don't want to know the answers to these questions. Like that wouldn't be good. But anyway, having this argument with Caroline at dinner last, I told her, I was like, I might watch Tenet again tonight. Like,
Yeah.
I'm ready to watch it again after having this conversation about it. It's so engaging and thought provoking. It's so cool. Yeah, I don't know really what to add in addition to what you said. I mean, I completely agree. It's a masterpiece. It's a totally unrepentant 5-star for me. I love this film. Visually and auditorially, doubtless one of the greatest films of the past decade. Has incredibly engaging sci-fi mechanics, plot, characters. All the storytelling is done through showing, not telling. There are, to your point, a couple of scenes with some of that like little bit of exposition dumping, and you talked about them being like cutscenes that you want to skip, but like it's really important to note that cumulatively those scenes are probably only 3 minutes long.
Right.
Like, it's like, it does give you like a little bit of exposition. It's like you have to. There is no way to explain Sator's origins. Like, right, it has to happen to like make the plot make sense. And so he does it in the most efficient, economical way you possibly can. And even in Sator's exposition, his voiceover is at least paired with something visual. You're still looking at something happening, even though it's exposition. It just requires dialogue for you to understand what's being depicted. So, like, I don't know. It's very effective storytelling. It has incredible themes. We've alluded to some of them during the podcast, but here are some things that I really love. Number one, conceptually, the idea of identity and personality, right? In this universe of Tenet, there is no free will, right? This is what is called, if folks are not aware, a type 4 time travel story, right? In type 4 time travel stories, what happened. It cannot be changed. You cannot change the past. It doesn't try to engage conceptually with this idea of like the grandfather paradox or any of that stuff. It's just like we're all on rails. And in that kind of universe, we understand through the way these characters are depicted that your identity and your personality are largely a matter of circumstance and opportunity, a la Sator. This is something I love so much about Sator as a villain, because to your point, he's not particularly villainous, right? He's not very scary. He's not a very intimidating kind of guy. He's just a shrewd operator who is in the right place at the right time. And I think that is like a truth about the universe that Nolan really understands. We see this happen a lot in his stories, that there is latitude that folks have in terms of the outcome that they're going to achieve in their lives. But a lot of the things that we do and experience and become are more a matter of circumstance than kind of discrete decision making. But Neil says this explicitly in the film, right? Knowing what's going to happen is not an excuse to not take action. Even if you live in a world that you understand is deterministic, that you're on rails, you still have to behave as though you have agency. We are still participating in the universe, even though we're buffeted by forces that are outside of our control. I fucking love that. It's so cool.
I agree.
Another thing that I really love, feeling a closeness and kinship with others is what grounds us, right? We have the protagonist and Neil's relationship. We have Kat and her son, even though it's written in a very ham-fisted way. And Sator's evil is because he is completely alone. Not only is he a miserable prick, but he is so alienated and estranged and isolated from everybody else because he has this horrible knowledge, right? They talk all the time through the film, knowledge divided. The way that Tenet works is by isolating little sub-components of the entire understanding of what's happening in this timeline to individuals with really almost nobody having a full understanding of what's going to happen. Sator is the only one who knows everything, and he's miserable. It's completely ruined his life having this knowledge about the fact that, we live in a world that is ending. I love this as a companion piece to Oppenheimer, as an exploration of a war and a threat to humanity that transcends nuclear Armageddon in scope and horror, right? Nuclear Armageddon is temporary, right? We could theoretically recover from that irradiation, although it would be really challenging.
Yeah.
And crucially, it would only destroy now, right? The past would still exist. Nolan asks the question in Tenet, what if there was a conflict that was both temporal and physical in nature that doesn't only destroy things now, but destroys everything forever? I think that is such an effective way of helping viewers in the modern era, I think, for whom the concept of nuclear Armageddon has become a little passe. It's not really something we're afraid of anymore. Engage with the way it felt to live during, the Cold War of the 50s and 60s when folks were, doing bomb drills, hiding under their desks in their schools and shit. Like, we don't really think about things in that way anymore. And the idea of what happens in Tenet is horrifying. It's really scary to think about, and it's so cool. And finally, we talked about it. I just love it as like a bromance friendship movie. It's so cool that Neil and the protagonist get to be together forever. Like, it's amazing. I love it so much. It has some issues, of course. Some of the science is a little silly. Kat's writing is ham-fisted. It's super cheesy at times. It's a pretty campy film occasionally. But like, I don't know, 5 stars. What are you gonna do? One of my favorites of all time, and easily in my like top 3 Nolan. I love this movie. I cannot possibly recommend it more full-throatedly. Just don't be a prick about it. You know, go in, think about having a nice time. Just like turn your brain off a little bit, enjoy the visuals, listen to the music. Hope you got like a nice subwoofer or something. You don't watch this on your phone.
Oh yeah.
You know, watch this on a TV. Like,
don't even think
this
about
needs to be watched
watching
on
it
a television.
phone. Yeah.
And so there you go. That's what I think about Tenet. Mike, do you have any films that you would like to recommend in addition to Tenet?
Yeah, film. Singular. I want to recommend another vibes film. I thought long and hard about this. I think maybe the most obvious choice of all time would be Blade Runner or its sequel, maybe even Mad Max Fury Road. But I went in a little different direction with a bit of a cult classic, and I'm recommending the 2006 Michael Mann film, Miami Vice. Now, I know you don't like this film as much as I do, but
I really don't.
It's one of my favorite Mann films. It's his second film shot entirely on digital after Collateral, and I like the vibe and story of Miami Vice a lot more than the story in Collateral. It is just this brooding digital era remake of the famous 1980s TV show starring Colin Farrell and Jamie Foxx as the characters Sonny and Tubbs, Crockett and Tubbs, respectively, as they infiltrate a global drug operation. And it is just such a cool vibe. It's so atmospheric. There's all of this, just it's such a dour, bleak film with a lot of long stares and midnight skies and humming go-fast boats. There's a beautiful texture to the film and its early digital cinematography. And I love that although the main characters aren't flashy, there is emotion beneath that stoicism. They're haunted, hardened men trying to hold on to something real. And so I think, it's very different than Tenet tonally, but it's a total vibe. You settle in for 2.5 hours late at night and just enjoy the ride. It's not a narrative thrill ride necessarily. It's more of this dream state noir where the mood is the message. And so I recommend Miami Vice. What about you, Mike? What do you recommend?
It's a great recommendation. I don't really like it very much, but I respect the recommendation. Anyway, I have a much less interesting, much more obvious recommendation to make. I'm just going to recommend Interstellar. It's my favorite Nolan movie. I think that if you sat down and watched Tenet and you really liked it, I think you should watch Interstellar as something that I think does what it does as effectively as Tenet does what it's doing and has a lot of the same qualities, a lot of like, not as many practical effects as something like Tenet, but certainly a fantastical sci-fi world that looks as real and lived in as the world in Tenet does. It's covering a lot of the same themes, about the journey that we're all on and the inextricable bonds of family and friendship and shared history and all that kind of stuff. And it's a similarly sort of epic in scope, kind of weirdo sci-fi masterpiece, and it's got Matthew McConaughey in it. I really like his performance. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to see too much about it. You should watch Interstellar if you liked this film and you like Christopher Nolan and you've never seen it.
Yeah, worthwhile watch, even though the first act takes place entirely in cornfields.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I hung out in cornfields all the time when I was growing up, so it makes me feel a little nostalgic. So there you go. All right. Well, anyway, there we go. Do you want to do a couple letters, Mike? I hear we have a couple letters.
Yeah, we have a couple of letters this week from friends of the pod, Chase and Philip. Chase's is a bit longer than Philip, so how about we start off with Chase, and then we'll just finish this episode off with friend of the pod, Lips.
Sounds great.
Chase writes, "Greetings, Mike, and the De Niro Nation once again. Although I would call myself a Scorsese stan pretty easily and without hesitation, New York is one of the few films of his I haven't actually watched, partly because of its infamously low positioning in the overall canon of his oeuvre, and also quite arbitrarily because of its needlessly protracted length. Ironic coming from someone who absolutely devours and loves slow burn cinema of the Tarkovsky Rivette variety pretty ravenously. But the main reason I haven't bothered with New York Cubed is simply because of the very fact that I really don't like musicals as a genre all that much. In fact, it's probably my least favorite film genre in terms of taste bias. Unless it's films openly embracing the experimental, the weird, or the darkly absurd like Jacques Demy's The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, or Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise, or more exquisitely traditional musicals balancing a feather-like touch between drama and all-out numbers such as Vicente Minnelli's Meet Me in St. Louis or Ernst Lub's. I'm mispronouncing so many names right now.
This is
the
awesome.
Merry Widow
you
had
gotta
an
just put
incredible
this
experience.
in as it is, like no editing.
I will.
Yeah,
There's no way to edit around it, man. That's why this episode is going to be 3 fucking hours long. There's no way to edit around a lot of this stuff. So many musicals are quite a chore to sit through personally. The whole suspension of disbelief needed for musicals to succeed is very highly selective upon the material and the execution of said material, and most of the time it doesn't gel at all for me personally. And it's weird to think of all the other auteurs of new wave / post-classical Hollywood around the time of New York Cubed catching the musical epidemic and turning out the likes of Sidney Lumet's The Wiz, Robert Altman's Popeye, and Francis Ford Coppola's One from the Heart. Spielberg's 1941 should have been a musical the more I think about it. I guess my question / ask me anything prompt of the letter would be, what's your least favorite film genre? And also on the inverse, what's an obscure / obsolete subgenre that you miss and would love a new tribute / throwback film harkening back to? For me, it's nuclear thrillers and the submarine film. Mike, what are your thoughts?
It's interesting. It's a great question. What do you think is my least favorite genre of film? I feel like I'm generally pretty indifferent. I like most things, I suppose. But I guess if I had to pick one, it would be like non-elevated horror.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not something that I really ever choose to watch.
Yeah, we're just entering October, and the last couple of years I've started devoting the month of October to watching horror films to kind of fill that blind spot. And there are enough good horror films out there to fill 1 month each year. I think my answer to Chase's first question there is also musicals. I really don't like musicals. I really don't like the pacing of them. I don't like the singing. I don't like all of that stuff. So it's a genre that I avoid 9 times out of 10 if I can help it. But this other question is also interesting. What's an obscure or obsolete subgenre that you miss and would love a new tribute / throwback film harkening back to? I have my answer in my head right now, but what about you? Anything come to mind?
I don't know the answer to this question. I mean, I guess I just watched such a good submarine film recently, right? Crimson Tide. Did you recommend that on the podcast? Is that why I watched it?
Yes.
Yeah, that was an incredible film. So I think I'm gonna have to cop out and just go with submarine film, because I don't really think that we get those. We don't get many of those films lately, right? Of someone just being trapped, like it's almost like a Bible episode, I guess, like of a film. I don't know. It's not a very good answer, though. I didn't have time to think about this in advance.
I mean, I didn't have time to think about it either. I just came up with it upon reading it out loud. But my answer is the early 1970s dirty, grimy New York films. Films like The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. I want really gritty, raw, dirty graffiti on the walls. Everyone is some sort of miscreant. Everyone is yelling and cursing. That's what I would like to have. I mean, action films, especially these days, it's too clean because they shoot on sound stages, on the volume, whatever. Yep. No one has any sweat dripping down their bodies. No one ever has dirt on their faces when they are thrown to the ground or anything like that. So yeah, just give me a throwback in that sense. Just shoot it for cheap on location somewhere, and just in the dead of a New York heat wave. Give me that. That's the film that I want.
Yep. Yeah, it does sound nice. I agree. I like those films.
Thank you, Chase, for the letter. Appreciate it as always. Great couple of questions. Couple of questions. Our question from Philip is one sentence. I'm just going to read it.
A little shorter, I guess.
Yeah. Philip asks, is there such thing as a good or justified assassination? Philip, I don't know if I want to respond to this question on air. Are you kidding me? It's a really loaded one to be throwing at us in October 2025.
It really is.
I think I'm just going to abstain.
Probably no, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like we justify most of those kinds of acts of violence as justifiable ex post facto. You know, it's the power of retrospect that makes you know whether something is justified. I think in a vacuum, that kind of violence is always a bad idea because you just never know what the effects are going to be. I don't know. That's my general answer. I'm sure that you could posit a perfectly fine counterexample, but as a rule, like, I don't know. No, probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with you on the point that you cannot foresee the consequences of
Right.
such
Yep.
extreme action. So, yeah,
Yep.
I don't know if it is necessarily the move.
Yeah, I think it's better to not do violence as a general rule.
Yeah.
I know it's tough, obviously, because there's so many people defecting, in this prisoner's dilemma world that we get to live in. But, sometimes you just have to be the bigger person, unfortunately, which is really tough from a game theory perspective. But if everybody defects, then what kind of world do we live in,
Well said. Got real at the end of our Tenet recap episode.
Yep. Oh, great. Love it. All right. I guess I'll read us out. I would like to thank you, Mike, my co-host, for being here with me. And I would like to thank you, citizens of De Niro Nation, for coming back week in and week out, even this week. And if you're here, even for this episode, which I think is probably like 40% longer than our previous longest episode.
How did that happen?
Even after Mike pares it down.
How did you let it get so out of hand?
Movie. So I would like to thank Christopher Nolan for making Tenet and for just being such a cool guy.
Sure, absolutely.
And I'd like to thank my wife, friend of the pod, wife of the pod, Caroline, a.k.a. Bad Cree, for drawing our podcast's wonderful, beautiful art. I would like to invite you to please follow and rate us 5 stars only, please, on your podcast listening platform of choice. Write us literally anything. And you can see, right? I mean, I answered the assassinations question. So you can ask us literally fucking anything. And we will almost certainly answer it on air at ourherodeniro@gmail.com. And please follow Mike and I on Letterboxd. He is Mike Back at You, and I am Mike the Fab.
How is it that even your outros are long?
Well, there you go. So thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we will see you next week for Killers of the Flower Moon.
Can't wait.